Chapter 2239. The lady in yellow couldn't help but mutter to herself. No wonder Yang Zhao's cold poison was so powerful. The ice silkworm's cold poison is indeed tyrannical. Bang! Like a broken egg, Yu Tanji rushed out from inside. At this moment, Zhai Xingzi's vitality was greatly injured, and he looked very dispirited. How could he dodge? In the blink of an eye, he was hit by several palms. Blood spurted out, and it seemed like he would not survive. Everyone in the drill ground gasped. A second ago, Zhai Xingzi had the upper hand, but in the end, he was defeated and killed. It was really hard to predict. Many people looked at Zhuang Juxian with fear. Every time he fought, his opponents were either dead or crippled. He was too ruthless. Xingqiu's sect was, after all, an unorthodox sect. It was not worth mentioning in the eyes of the major forces. Xingqiu's sect had always been killing each other, and they were eager for this big brother to die so that they could take over. Therefore, not only did the people in the sect not feel sad, they were all happy, so no one pursued his death. The Xixia side naturally did not want to cause trouble. After cleaning up the mess, they announced the start of the next match. Chun Jialuo versus Nalan Rongrua. Compared to the dangerous last match, this one was much friendlier. Of course, this also meant that the battle was not intense. Many people were still reminiscing about the scene just now, but there were also many noble ladies and young ladies looking at the two people on the stage with infatuated expressions. It had to be known that whether it was Chun Jialuo or Nalan Rongrua, they were both handsome and elegant young masters. Nalan Rongrua's poems were even sung throughout the world, and he had fans even in the Western Xia. Both of them could be called modest gentlemen. There was no blood in their fight, only a little. In the end, Chun Jialuo relied on the cattle butchering skill to defeat his opponent. Nalan Rongrua was also very magnanimous. Not only did she not look depressed, she even sincerely congratulated her opponent. Even Xue Baochai could not help but smile. These two are really handsome. The lady in yellow also could not help but agree, which made Xue Pan unhappy, putting on an act. These hypocrites can only deceive you ignorant little girls. Xue Baochai and the lady in yellow rolled their eyes, clearly too lazy to care about him. The next match was between Su Zhu of Shaolin Temple and Qing Lingzi of Kunlun Sect. Both Shaolin Temple and Kunlun Temple were great sects that had existed for thousands of years. This battle was not only related to them, but to a certain extent, it was also related to the honor of both sections. Decades ago, the three saints of Kunlun, Zhu Dao, came to Shaolin to pay his respects. He almost single-handedly challenged Shaolin. Fortunately, he was defeated by Junzhang Junbao and his disciple. Later, because Shaolin investigated Junzhang Junbao and his disciple for secretly teaching them martial arts, Junzhang died. Zhang Junbao betrayed Shaolin and founded Wudong's sect. He was later recognized as the Earth Immortal Zhang Sanfeng. The Shaolin Temple had always regarded this incident as a great humiliation, and it even caused a feud with the Kunlun sect. On the stage, the two of them exchanged their names and began a fight. In the first few rounds of competition, Qing Lingzi's swordsmanship had left a deep impression on everyone. In particular, when he fought against the Ku clan's Seven Verdant sect, his rain-beating flying flower sword art was truly amazing. But this time, he used another sword art. It was the most famous sword art of the Kunlun sect, the two-way sword art. Hey, the two-way sword art of the Kunlun sect needs two people to cooperate with each other, but he can actually use it at the same time. The yellow-robed woman could not help but be very surprised. Not only was the yellow-robed woman surprised, even Song Qingshu was somewhat surprised. The two-way sword art of the Kunlun sect evolved from the 4 divisions, 8 trigrams. It had 64 kinds of changes. There were yin and yang in the swordsmanship, hard and soft. When two people used it at the same time, one person's swordsmanship was simple and heavy, while the other person's swordsmanship was fast and light, which could play a complementary role. Reading Network, however, when two people worked together, even if they were as close as husband and wife or brothers, it was difficult for them to truly understand each other. It was inevitable that there would be flaws in their moves. If one person used it at the same time, there would not be such a flaw. Unfortunately, there were only a few people in the world who could do two things at the same time. Song Qingshu originally thought that Qing Lingzi was not Xiuzhu's opponent. After all, Xiuzhu could use the small phaseless method to activate the 72 ultimate skills of Shaolin Temple. At the same time, he also had the martial arts of the Xiaoyao sect. However, this Qing Lingzi used the most classic and common two-way sword art of the Kunlun sect to fight him to a draw. A trace of enlightenment flashed in Song Qingshu's heart. No wonder Zhang Wuji, who had the Nine Yang divine skill and the Qian Kun de Nuo, almost died in the hands of the Kunlun sect's two-way sword art and the Huashan sect's two-way saber art. If it wasn't for Zhou Zhuo, who deliberately pointed out the essence of the four divisions' 8 trigrams, the martial arts handed down by the famous sects, when practiced to the most profound level, were actually not inferior to the secret manuals of the devil cult. It was just that the righteous sects paid attention to gradual progress. If one really wanted to practice to the extreme, perhaps it would take at least a few decades. The martial arts of the devil cult often allowed one to achieve success in Jianghu at a young age. For human nature, many people preferred to choose this kind of shortcut. After watching for a while, Song Qingshu could see that Qing Lingzi's internal energy was far inferior to Xiuzhu's. He could make up for it by fighting left and right, but his internal energy could not be faked. Xiuzhu relied on the dark north divine skill and the small non-phase method to cheat, but the Kunlun sect did not have such a quick internal energy. However, internal energy was not absolute. It should be known that Xiao Longnu's internal energy was far inferior to Jinlun Fuwang's, but with the harmonious dual sword art, she could beat him. Therefore, it was still unknown who would win the battle between Qing Lingzi and Xiuzhu. On the stage, Xiuzhu had used a small part of the 72 ultimate skills, but he still could not defeat his opponent. He could not help but become more and more impatient. So his monk robe was pierced by the opponent's sword. At this time, Martial Uncle Kong, Wen's voice came from below the stage. The opponent's moves are exquisite, but his internal energy is relatively weak. Why do you have to compete with him in moves? Xiuzhu could not help but be enlightened. He directly used his internal energy and no longer dodged the opponent's sword. Instead, he chose to fight by exchanging injuries. The Shaolin Temple had the Vajra indestructible divine skill. Although he was not as proficient as Xuanqing, it was barely enough. On the contrary, with Qing Lingzi's internal energy, he would not be able to withstand one of Xiuzhu's moves. Sure enough, in the face of such a change, Qing Lingzi could not help but be in a dilemma. For a moment, his swordsmanship was somewhat scattered. Song Qingshu, who was below the stage, frowned. Xiuzhu had learned a lot of things, but did he have the ability to adapt? Looking back, he noticed that Kong Wen's lips were slowly moving. Obviously, he was using the secret sound transmission technique to remind Xiuzhu. Song Qingshu could not help but secretly curse this person for being so shameless. Xiuzhu was already using a cheat, but this old monk was still giving him advice from the side. Although Kong Wen's internal energy was not as good as Xiuzhu's, he was, after all, famous for decades. As one of the 4 great divine monks, his eyesight and experience were naturally far better than Xiuzhu's. At this time, Qing Lingzi took the opportunity to jump out of the fighting ring. He cupped one hand the other before his chest and admitted defeat. Your Excellency's internal energy is so high that I am ashamed of my inferiority. I thought my martial arts was enough to show disdain for my peers, but I didn't expect that I was just a frog at the bottom of a well. Xiuzhu replied, Benefactor, ahem. Brother, you are too polite. What is your relationship with He Zhu Dao, one of the 3 saints of Kunlun? Qing Lingzi replied, He Zhu Dao is my grandmaster. I was fortunate enough to receive some advice from him. Song Qingshu secretly nodded. No wonder his swordsmanship was so amazing. It turned out that he had been taught by a famous master. Song Qingshu could not help but admire him. Compared with him, who had been practicing hard since childhood, people like him who used cheats always felt like they were cheating. The world was so big that there were indeed hidden dragons and crouching tigers. A young man whose name he had never heard of had such a high level of martial arts. Song Qing-shu was filled with emotion. In fact, he did not know that in the original world, Qing Ling-zi was the head of the Kunlun sect in the world of the Return of the Condor Heroes. He did not even give face to Guijing and Huangrong. He was only on good terms with Yang Hua. That was why he came out of seclusion to celebrate Guo Xiang's birthday and defeat the Mongolian army. He was not a nameless person. Chapter 2240. The yellow-robed woman nodded and went up the stage. Noticing Xue Baochai's worried expression, Song Qing-shu consoled. "Don't worry. The ninja arts of Japan are indeed extremely treacherous. If it was in the deep mountains and dense forests, it would indeed be a little difficult to deal with. But on this stage where everyone is watching, no matter how good his ninja arts are, he won't be able to do anything." Only then did Xue Baochai heave a sigh of relief. However, she was immediately stunned. Bao doesn't know martial arts, so why would I unconsciously listen to his consolation? At this moment, the two people on the stage had already exchanged blows. Her attention was immediately attracted, and she didn't give it much thought. She saw Hidekitsu once again using the metal evasion technique. However, the yellow-robed woman had seen him make a move before and was already on guard. She immediately closed her eyes. Seeing this, Hidekitsu was overjoyed. This was exactly what he wanted, and he took the opportunity to quickly get close to her. Just as he was about to attack, a flawless white hand appeared on his chest. Hidekitsu was greatly astonished and flew back. However, how could his speed be faster than the yellow-robed woman's 9 divine claws? The yellow-robed woman caught hold of him, but a hint of bewilderment appeared on her face. She looked at her palm and discovered that she was actually grabbing onto a piece of wood. "You're actually still able to see me after being hit by my metal evasion technique?" Hidekitsu had already appeared at the foot of the stage, looking at her with a wary expression. "Although I can't see with my eyes, it isn't difficult for me to determine your location by hearing," the yellow-robed woman replied casually. "But how did you use a piece of wood to replace yourself earlier?" "This is my Japan's unparalleled ninja art, wood evasion technique." A hint of complacency flashed on Hidekitsu's face. "Next, I'll show you my fire evasion technique." He rubbed his hands together, and a few fireballs appeared on the stage out of thin air. They were similar to Zhai Xingzi's flames, but they weren't glowing green like Zhai Xingzi's flames. They shouldn't be poisonous. Seeing the fireballs flying in all directions, the yellow-robed woman's expression couldn't help but change slightly. It wasn't that she was afraid of these things, but that as a woman, she was naturally resistant to things that could harm her appearance. After all, if the flames accidentally touched her hair or skin, it would be very bad. Her figure was graceful as she dodged the fireballs one by one, causing everyone to exclaim in admiration. Her red lips and white teeth made her look even more charming and elegant when she was disguised as a man. Many of the madams and young ladies who had previously cheered for Chun Jialuo and Nailan Rongruo were now cheering for her. However, when the cheers were at their loudest, there was a sudden change on the stage. Dozens of scattered fireballs exploded at the same time, and the whole stage was filled with dazzling flames, forcing everyone below the stage to close their eyes. Only a few people with profound cultivation could clearly see what was happening on the stage. They saw Hidekitsu taking advantage of the cover of the fireballs to silently approach the yellow-robed woman. He then opened his mouth and spat out a stream of black water. Even with Song Qing-shu's composure, he couldn't help but stand up at this moment. This black water was obviously not something good. The Sun Moon Divine sect had water guns that shot out this kind of ink-like substance. It was extremely poisonous, and if it came into contact with the skin, it would be fatal. Even experts like Master Fangzheng and Taoist Priest Chong Su had a slim chance of survival when faced with this kind of water gun. He didn't want to see the yellow-robed woman get injured by the Japanese's crafty schemes. Just when he was about to step onto the stage to save her, the yellow-robed woman raised her hand at the critical moment and created a gust of wind from her palm, forcing the black water back into the enemy's mouth. Hidekitsu let out a miserable cry. Miyamoto Musashi, Sasaki Kojiro, and the others had already rushed up and quickly took out the antidote for him to consume. Only then did he barely manage to keep his life. The outcome was obvious. However, when a yellow-robed woman came down from the stage, there was no smile on her face. Just when Song Qing-shu was about to ask her about it, he suddenly smelled a burnt smell. After taking a closer look, he realized that the ends of a few strands of her hair were slightly curled. Clearly, she didn't manage to completely avoid the fireballs on the stage, and a few strands of her hair were burnt. Women were born to love beauty, and what happened just now made her very unhappy. Shui Pan and the others didn't know what was good for them, and hurriedly went up to flatter her. In the end, all they got was a supercilious look. Sasaki didn't leave the stage after saving Hidekitsu, because it was his turn in the last round, and his opponent was Wang Baobao. Wang Baobao didn't forget to attract hatred after going up on the stage. Do you Japanese only know how to use these unorthodox methods? Sasaki snorted coldly. Today, I can still beat you without using ninjutsu. Wang Baobao laughed loudly. I thought I was the most arrogant person in the world, but I didn't expect someone to be even more arrogant than me. Cut the crap. Let's see who's stronger. Baka. Sasaki held his sword against the wind and pulled out the weapon that was much longer than a normal sword. Soon, the two of them started fighting. Even Song Qing-shu was watching carefully. Although the Japanese had all kinds of bad points, there were also many good points. Their martial arts were somewhat similar to those of the Central Plains, but more of them took a different approach and formed their own system. Previously, he had only fought with the Shuei sect and a few other Japanese. This time, he could clearly observe the advantages and disadvantages of Japanese martial arts from the perspective of a bystander. Sasaki Kojiro was indeed a famous swordsman in history. His swordsmanship indeed had the aura of a grandmaster. In the Central Plains, he was also a top-notch swordsman. Although Wang Baobao was a half-baked swordsman, he was born to be a famous general. He was used to blood and fire on the battlefield, so his martial arts cultivation was twice the result with half the effort than ordinary people. At the same time, he also had a murderous aura. If someone with a weak mind met him, he was likely to be suppressed at the beginning of the fight and could not play 70% of his usual martial arts. The martial arts of the two had their own advantages and disadvantages. In the end, Sasaki was unable to break the opponent's Vajra body, while Wang Baobao was in an invincible position and could keep attacking Wuji without fear. Wait a minute. Finally, Sasaki sighed and decided to admit defeat. Suliawu couldn't help but say angrily, "What is he doing? Didn't he say that no one could survive under his yin attack? Why doesn't he use yin attack?" Miyamoto Musashi happened to be nearby and explained for him. Sasaki can't break the opponent's Vajra body. Even if yin attack hits the opponent, it's useless, so he simply doesn't use it. He also had some regrets in his heart. He wanted to take this opportunity to see the full appearance of the famous yin attack. However, he didn't expect that Sasaki was so cunning that he didn't want to expose his unique skill even in this situation. However, judging from the fight just now, it seemed that under certain specific circumstances, it seemed that he couldn't use yin attack. Miyamoto Musashi thought. Suliawu remembered that he had promised to help him find out the weak point of Wang Baobao's Vajra body. Unfortunately, LV Shi Dao was too incompetent and couldn't find out. Thinking of all this, Suliawu couldn't blame Sasaki too much. After today's competition, all the forces returned to their respective hotels. Song Qing-shu found two beautiful figures standing at the door. It turned out to be the Fu sisters from Goryeo. "Why do you think of seeing me?" Song Qing-shu had to admit that this pair of sisters standing together was truly a delightful sight to behold. "Our injuries have healed a lot. After so many things happened before, we have to escort the crown prince back to Goryeo as soon as possible." Fu Junya replied, "We're here to say goodbye to you. Thank you for your help this time." Song Qing-shu suddenly felt a little reluctant. "You're leaving so soon." Fu Junya replied, "Our country has sent someone to urge us, and the crown prince also wants to go back as soon as possible, so we can't delay any longer. All good things must come to an end. You should be careful on the way. I will ask the Xixia country to send troops to escort you." Song Qing-shu knew that it was useless to persuade them, and they were bound to leave. Fu Junyu's eyes turned red. Will we have a chance to see each other again? Song Qing-shu was stunned and replied with a smile. Of course we will. We will see each other again if we are destined to. Fu Junyu curled her lips, and tears fell instantly. But Goryeo and the Central Plains are thousands of miles apart. What's more, we made such a big mistake this time. I guess we can't leave Goryeo in the future. How can we see each other again? Fu Junyi couldn't help but turn around and sigh softly. Song Qing-shu said, You can't come to the Central Plains, but I can go to Goryeo to see you. Really? Fu Junyu rubbed her eyes and looked at him with a pleasantly surprised expression. Even Fu Junyi couldn't help but turn her head. It should be known that for the people of the Central Plains, Goryeo was a bitter and cold place. No one was willing to go to a small border country thousands of miles away. Of course, I will definitely go to Goryeo if I have a chance. After all, there are two beautiful girls waiting for me there. Song Qing-shu was thinking about the outline of the plan in his mind. He needed to make use of Goryeo, so he would most likely go there when the time came. Bah, shameless. Who is waiting for you? Fu Junyu's face turned red. Fu Junyu directly spat. Song Qing-shu said with a smile, Since no one is waiting for me, I won't go. Fu Junyu immediately panicked. No, you promised to come. Noticing his playful expression, she realized that she had been fooled. She was so angry that she raised her fist and wanted to hit him. The two sides quarreled for a while. Song Qing-shu was going to see them off, but he received a message that something had happened in Tubo. He could only give up the idea of seeing the sisters off. The sisters also expressed their understanding and reluctantly bid farewell to him. The explosive news spread quickly in Xingqing Prefecture. No wonder the people of Tubo were absent from today's competition. It turned out that the Prince of Tubo, Zongzan, had steamed his wife. At first, Song Qing-shu was confused. He didn't understand what steamed meant. He thought that Zongzan had put the Princess of Jinsheng in a steamer and steamed her. He was shocked and scolded Zongzan for being a pervert. At the same time, he felt that it was a pity that such a quiet and gentle woman like the Princess of Jinsheng would die so miserably. But later, Shwep Baochai blushed and told him, sex on the top is called sex on the bottom, and sex on the bottom is called steaming. After some explanation, he understood that steaming his wife meant to violate his mother. Although the Princess of Jinsheng was about the same age as Zongzan, she was now the princess of Tubo's old Zan. In theory, she was Zongzan's stepmother. No matter where, such behavior was against human relations. Chapter 22:41. I'm going to see Princess Jinsheng. The yellow-robed woman's face was cold, and her body was trembling under her dress. Obviously, she was extremely angry now. Song Qing-shu thought for a while and decided to go with her. She was weak and helpless at this moment, and she needed comfort and guidance the most. When they arrived at the Tubo guest house, it was already crowded with people. In addition to the locals, there were also people from other forces who came to watch. The yellow-robed woman wanted to go in, but she was stopped. It was useless even if she showed her identity. Obviously, the Tubo guest house didn't want the scandal to spread. Song Qing-shu took out the token of Xixia and wanted to go in to investigate in the name of Xixia. The guard hesitated for a while and let him go. The yellow-robed woman was a little surprised that he had such a close relationship with Xixia, but she was not in the mood to care about this. She hurried to the inner residence. However, when she entered the guest house, she found that the people inside were in a panic, and many people were crying. The yellow-robed woman's heart skipped a beat, and she had a bad feeling. As expected, she immediately got the news that Princess Jinsheng hanged herself after the incident. What? Song Qing-shu and the yellow-robed woman didn't expect that they were too late. They hurried to the princess room. They had been here several times, so they naturally knew the way. When they arrived at the princess room, Princess Jinsheng's body had been taken down and placed on the bed. An old woman had finished checking and reported to Geomaji. The princess was obviously violated when she was alive. There are still men's dirty things left on her lower body. In addition, the princess' face was also scratched by herself, and her hair was scattered in front of her. Judging from her suicide note, she must have lost her virginity and was too ashamed to see others, so, hearing the old woman's words, the yellow-robed woman hurried to the inner room. Someone tried to stop her, but she was pushed away by her internal force. When she saw Princess Jinsheng's miserable death, she blacked out and fell backward. Fortunately, Song Qingshu was behind her and quickly caught her. At this moment, he also saw Princess Jinsheng's body clearly. His heart skipped a beat. He could not help but think of how Chao Pai's empress, Zhenmi, died. Her hair was draped over her face, and she stuffed her mouth with straw. Princess Jinsheng's death was obviously more tragic. From the blood and flesh on her fingertips, it could be seen how angry and painful she was at that time. Impossible. How could this be suicide? Show me your will. The yellow-robed woman finally regained her breath and struggled to stand up. She looked at Jiumaji and the others with red eyes. Ba, none of us want to see such a thing happen. I have Red Princess's will. It is indeed her usual handwriting. Jiumaji sighed and asked the guards to leave for now. He handed over the will left by Princess Jinsheng. The yellow-robed woman hurriedly opened it. After only a few glances, her tears instantly flowed down. Yes, it is indeed her notes. Song Qingshu took it and saw that the beautiful handwriting was a little messy. It said that she had shamed her country and let down her subjects and people of Tubo. She had no face to live in this world. He could not help but frown and said, could it be that a master of counterfeiting notes forged this letter? Since there were masters of disguise in this world, there must be masters of counterfeiting notes. The yellow-robed woman shook her head while crying, no. When I came to visit her last time, we practiced calligraphy together. We talked about the calligraphy masters of the Central Plains. She even said that she had lived in Tubo for a long time, which caused her strokes to be a little different from before. She had some small problems. It is impossible for an outsider to forge these parts. He noticed that the corners of the words she pointed to were slightly different from the other words. If one did not know, they would not be able to tell. Song Qingshu could not help but sigh secretly. He did not expect that gentle and beautiful woman to say goodbye to this world in this way. Where is Zongzan? The yellow-robed woman raised her head. Her eyes were almost spitting fire. It was obvious that she wanted to avenge her sister who had died tragically. Jiumaji was shocked and hurriedly said, our prince is also a victim. Please calm down. With his eyesight, he could naturally see that the yellow-robed woman was a woman disguised as a man. He is a victim? The yellow-robed woman's teeth chattered. It was obvious that she was angry. Chapter 361. Reading Song Qingshu also frowned. Jiumaji was too unkind. Jiumaji explained, Miss, you have misunderstood. I am saying that our prince was also drugged and locked up together like the princess. That is why this happened. Drugged? Hearing this, the yellow-robed woman's expression became even more unpleasant. Yes. Jiumaji began to explain how Zongzan was plotted against and fed the most despicable drug. When he woke up, he realized that he had made a huge mistake. Who did it? The yellow-robed woman's voice became colder. Jiumaji shook his head and said, I don't know. We are also investigating. The yellow-robed woman pulled Song Qingshu to the side and said, help me investigate this case and find the culprit. Me? Song Qingshu was stunned. After all, the yellow-robed woman had never liked Jia Baoyu. Previously, you investigated for the Lily sisters and helped them find the culprit. I think you could do it this time, too. The yellow-robed woman's eyes were firm. It was obvious that she wanted to avenge her sister, who had a hard life. When the Lily sisters had come to say goodbye to her, she had immediately thought of this. Last time was actually a coincidence. Song Qingshu had to explain. Last time, the Lily sisters had been in trouble one after another. Strictly speaking, there were still a few mysteries that had not been solved, so the case was not really solved. However, the yellow-robed woman clearly misunderstood him and said, you are so dedicated to helping the Lily sisters, but when I ask you for help, you refuse? By the way, isn't your opponent in the next round me? If you don't help me find the culprit, not only will I take back my promise to go easy on you, but I will also beat you up in front of all the heroes in the world. I think you don't want me spanked in front of so many people. Song Qing-shu thought to himself. If they really fought, it would be hard to tell who would be spanked. What are you looking at? The yellow-robed woman was instantly angry. Song Qing-shu knew that she was angry, so he wisely didn't provoke her anymore. He hurriedly said, I will do my best to help the princess. He had seen the princess of Jincheng a few times and had a good impression of this gentle princess. Now that she had fallen into this situation, he also wanted to help her get revenge. Xiaomaji's martial arts were profound, so he could naturally hear their conversation. He hurriedly said, This is an internal matter of Tubo. I'm afraid it's not convenient for outsiders to interfere. The yellow-robed woman said coldly, The princess is also the princess of the great Song dynasty. Now that she has died here for no reason, how can we just stand by and watch? Xiaomaji was speechless for a moment. After a long time, he nodded and said, If that's the case, I won't force you. However, the number of people who participate in solving the case must be as few as possible. After all, this matter will damage the princess's reputation, and it will be bad for the reputation of our two countries if it is spread out. But this matter has already spread all over the city, the yellow-robed woman said discontentedly. Xiaomaji sighed and said, But after all, not many people actually saw the princess's death. Otherwise, there would be many more ugly rumors. Chapter 2242. Xiaomaji said in a deep voice, Tubo is located at the border, and we don't have any grudges with the surrounding countries. But Si Luo of Qinghai has been fighting for the position of prime minister, and the first princess and the second princess are like fire and water. If anyone has the motive, it must be him. It must be them. The yellow-robed woman suddenly stood up and was about to find Si Luo to settle the score. Song Qing-shu hurriedly pulled her back. Don't be impulsive. Why are you stopping me? The yellow-robed woman looked at him in an unfriendly tone. Xiaomaji's pupils shrank slightly. The yellow-robed woman didn't notice anything unusual because she was too concerned about Si Luo, but he was observing from the side. The yellow-robed woman's kung fu was very high, but she was easily caught. Was it a coincidence? Or, Song Qing-shu explained, Will Si Luo admit it if you go there like this? He will directly say that he doesn't know anything. What can you do? Si Luo is not weak, and he has many masters under his command. Besides, the Western Xia can't just sit by and watch you do anything to them. Then what should we do? The girl in yellow had also calmed down a little by this time. She recalled that Si Zheluo had always been on good terms with the Southern Song dynasty because the Southern Song dynasty needed to use them to contain the Western Xia dynasty. If they accidentally made the two countries turn against each other, it would be troublesome if the national affairs were to be ruined. Don't alert them. Investigate the internal affairs of Tubo first. We can go there to confront them after we have a clear idea. Song Qing-shu said in a deep voice. The yellow-robed woman thought for a moment and agreed with him. I'm in a mess now. Where should we start the investigation? Let's first ask the person involved, Prince Zongzan. Song Qing-shu said in a deep voice. Xiaomaji said, The prince is also a victim. He's extremely shocked and sad now. I'm afraid it's not convenient for him to meet outsiders. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but sneer. What kind of victim is he? Is he still pretending to be innocent? Xiaomaji's face became hot. He also felt that it was a little unkind to say this, so he gradually lowered his voice. The prince's reputation has also been greatly damaged. I'm afraid it will endanger his prestige in the country. Well, I'll take you to see him. The sooner you find out the truth, the better our prince will be innocent. When they came to the prince's room, they found the fat man holding a mutton in one hand and a bowl of wine in the other. The yellow-robed woman's face suddenly turned sour. Is this the shock and sadness that King Ming mentioned? Xiaomaji smiled embarrassedly and said, Our prince was born with great strength, so he needs a lot of food to replenish himself. Please excuse us. Then he quickly ran to Zongzan and whispered something in his ear. Only then did Prince Zongzan reluctantly throw away the lamb leg in his hand. He casually wiped his oily hands on his clothes and walked over. What do you want to ask? Ask quickly. Smelling the smell of alcohol, The yellow-robed girl could not help but have a frosty expression. Thinking about how her elder sister had lost her innocence to such a person, she truly felt grief from the bottom of her heart. Feeling the trembling body of the yellow-robed woman, Song Qingshu gently patted her to comfort her. He then said to Zongzan, "Prince, can you tell me what happened in detail?" Zongzan replied in a muffled voice, "In the middle of the night, a guard came to tell me that the princess invited me over for a chat. I thought there might be a chance since I was alone in the middle of the night, so I didn't refuse. You know, my beautiful stepmother, ahem." Zhiomaji hurriedly coughed to remind him not to say what he shouldn't say. Only then did Prince Zongzan say, "When I got there, the princess's personal maid invited me to drink. She said that the princess was bathing and changing her clothes inside. When I heard that, my eyes went wide. Then I drank. Don't you Han people have a saying? Wine is the medium of sex. Who would have thought that I would lose consciousness after drinking?" The yellow-robed woman finally couldn't help but say angrily, "Nonsense. The princess of Jincheng is gentle and polite. How could she invite a man to her room in the middle of the night? I think you have been coveting her beauty. You drank in the middle of the night and got lustful, so you went to her room and raped her. How is that possible?" Zongzan was anxious. "I didn't have to do that. According to our custom, when the old Zan Pu passed away and I inherited the position of Zan Pu, she would also become my concubine. Why should I be in a hurry? Why should I take such a big risk at this time?" Zhiomaji also said, "Prince is right. We have the custom of replacing the father after the death of the son." Song Qingshu had experience in the Jin kingdom and roughly understood the custom of the nomadic people. The grassland was vast and sparsely populated. Women were very important resources and would not be easily wasted. So, young widows would remarry, and gradually this custom was formed. The yellow-robed woman had also heard about this and couldn't help but sigh that sister's life was really bitter. Song Qingshu asked, "Who was the guard who came to inform you last night?" Zongzan said, "Who would pay attention to the appearance of the guard? I can't remember." Zhiomaji added, "We have already sent people to investigate. There should be results soon." Song Qingshu nodded. "Also, who was the servant girl who received you yesterday?" Zongzan waved his hand impatiently. "The princess only has a few servant girls. You can go and ask. Don't bother me. When I woke up today, my back is sore. I need to rest." "Bastard." The yellow-robed woman saw that he didn't seem to be sad or guilty. She could no longer hold back her anger and directly clawed at him. Zhiomaji's expression changed and hurriedly stopped her. The two of them exchanged several moves in an instant. The yellow-robed woman's internal energy was slightly weaker, so she was pushed back a few steps by the opponent's internal energy. Okay. Investigating the truth is more important." Song Qingshu hurriedly stood between the two and said to the yellow-robed woman. At this time, a guard came to report that the guard who came to inform Zongzan last night had been found, but he was already dead. A stack of silver notes was found in his bag. It was obvious that he had been bribed. "Did you check the silver notes?" Song Qingshu asked. The guard replied, "I did. It was the most common Datong banknote on the market. I couldn't find the person behind it." This clue was broken, but this was expected. Song Qingshu said, "Let's go and find the princess's servant girl." The yellow-robed woman glared at Zongzan before leaving. "I will experience Wisdom King's flame blade another day." Zhiomaji also put his palms together. "Next time, I will experience Benefactor's 9E manual." After the two of them left, Prince Zongzan couldn't help but mutter, "What a pity. I've always wanted that beautiful stepmother. It's a pity that I didn't know what it felt like last night. What a pity, what a pity." Zhiomaji secretly frowned. Even he couldn't stand it anymore. However, he knew his prince's temper. It was useless to persuade him. He could only sigh secretly and let him have good rest. He followed him to investigate last night's case. Out of sight, out of mind, Song Qingshu and the yellow-robed woman came to the Jincheng princess's room. They learned that although the princess had many servants, there were only two who could be considered as personal servants. One was brought out of the palace during the marriage ceremony, and the other was appointed by the Tubo Old Zanpu. The one who received Prince Zongzan yesterday was appointed by the old Zanpu. Now, she was found hanged in the room. I'm afraid she was killed. The yellow-robed woman naturally didn't believe in the so-called suicide. Song Qing-shu also had the same feeling, but now he could only ask another maidservant named Huan Bai, who was brought out of the palace. He had a vague impression of this maidservant. Because the Tubo people were generally darker, she and the princess came from the south of the Yangtze River, so their skin was the fairest. The other maidservants from the south of the Yangtze River also had darker skin because they worked outside all year round. Chapter 2243. Go and verify what she said. Song Qing-shu ordered the guards. There was no curfew in Xingqing Prefecture, so it was reasonable for her to go out to buy things in the evening. But they still had to investigate. Those local ruffians were probably deliberately set up by someone to delay her. But the yellow-robed woman, who was born in a noble family, immediately realized that something was wrong. You are the head maid of the princess. How can you personally go to buy things like rouge? Can't you just send a little maid to do it? The princess asked me to buy it because I know her best. I was worried that other maids would buy the wrong things. Huan Bai explained. At this time, the officials of Xixia also heard the news and rushed over. The leader was Yelu Nanxian. When she saw Song Qing-shu and the yellow-robed woman together, she couldn't help but have a strange expression. You are really everywhere. Song Qing-shu shrugged. I can't help it. I'm so popular. Yelu Nanxian snorted and began to understand the situation with the Tubo people. Finally, she learned that Song Qing-shu was in charge of this case. She said, Anyway, you were the one who found out about the Goryeo incident last time. This time, I'll leave it to you. The envoys of various countries met with trouble one after another in Xingqing Prefecture. Xixia was also under a lot of pressure. Now that they handed it to Song Qing-shu, they could trust him. By the way, since this happened, the competition has been postponed for 2 days. You'd better find out the truth in these 2 days. We can't wait here indefinitely. With the power of the Xixia officials, it was much more convenient to investigate the case. Song Qing-shu directly asked the people of Class 1 Hall to investigate Si Siluo's subordinates. After all, Si Siluo couldn't do these things himself. Because the envoys of various countries met with trouble, Class 1 Hall set up a large number of hidden sentries in the city. Soon, they received news that the whereabouts of Si Siluo's other subordinates could be confirmed at the time of the incident. Only Jian Song twin swords were missing. Originally, Song Qing-shu had wanted to find a reason to ask the Dian Song twin swords for questioning, but the yellow-robed woman had long been unable to restrain her anger. When she got the news, she ran to grab the Dian Song twin swords. Her martial arts were among the best in the entire Jianghu, so it was naturally not a problem for her to grab the Dian Song twin swords. At first, the Dian Song twin swords pretended to be crazy. The yellow-robed woman was too lazy to talk nonsense with them. She directly activated the soul transfer technique. She was the true successor of the Nining manual, so naturally, she also knew this martial art. The two of them had their souls moved, so they naturally answered everything that was asked. In the end, they found out that they had bribed the princess's personal maid, Huan Bai. Huan Bai grew up with the princess and came from a palace as part of her dowry. Why would she betray her master? The yellow-shirt woman really couldn't figure it out, but the facts were there. The two of them decided to interrogate Huan Bai again. As long as the confession from the other side matched, and some relevant physical evidence was provided to form a closed loop of evidence, only then could they convict Si Luo. Just by relying on the testimony of the Dian Song twin swords, they had admitted their crimes under the state of soul transfer after all. Si Luo could completely evade it, and the other forces might not be convinced. However, when the two of them rushed to the Tubo guest house again, they found that Huan Bai had disappeared. Could it be that Si Luo sent someone to kill her? The guards here were also killed. The yellow-shirt woman bit her lip and said, if it weren't for Song Qing-shu stopping her, she would have rushed to Si Luo's house with a knife. Song Qing-shu shook his head. Because of the previous mistakes of the Tubo guest house's guards and maids, I've already sent people to guard the periphery of Si Luo's guest house to monitor their every move. They didn't have a chance to make a move. Even the goose houses of other countries have people stationed near them. It's impossible that we don't know if they have any unusual movements. Did Huan run away on her own? The yellow-shirted woman frowned. Maybe she had a guilty conscience after we questioned her before, Song Qingshu said in a low voice. I will immediately ask Xixia to issue a warrant for her arrest. Now that the city is under martial law and the city gates are tightly shut, it's impossible for her to run out. Even the inns in the city need official travel permits. She's just a maid without any identification, so she'll be found very soon. During normal times, staying in inns in places like Xixia was not so strict. However, with the gathering of political figures from various countries and the successive incidents, the official control was naturally stricter than ever. Therefore, in the current situation, there was no place for her to hide at all if she fled as a maid. Presumably, they would be able to find her soon. However, the truth was out of their expectations. Until the next evening, they still did not find her whereabouts. That's impossible. Song Qingshu found it hard to imagine that Huan Bai, a maid, could avoid the carpet-style search of Xixia. There were scouts from Class 1 Hall everywhere on the streets, so it was impossible for her to disappear without a trace. Unless she's already dead, the yellow-shirted woman said in a low voice. Song Qingshu also agreed with this judgment. Next, they sent people to turn the entire Tubo guest house upside down, but they still could not find her. All the clues ended here. Now that things had come to this, they could only use the Dian Song dual swords to confront Si Luo. However, it could be expected that there would be a chaotic battle of words. It was already late, so everyone went back to rest. Song Qingshu did not want to go back to the Southern Song guest house. He needed to calm down and think about the whole matter. So he went to the residence where Madame Jeanne was settled. Seeing his arrival, Madame Jeanne was overjoyed. She immediately came up to him with a face full of joy. The former #1 beauty of Corisi model exuded an astonishing figure and charm after being nourished. However, Song Qingshu was not in the mood to appreciate her current appearance. Seeing that he was depressed, Madame Jeanne asked him what happened in a soft voice. Song Qingshu lay on her round thighs and enjoyed her gentle massage while he briefly told her about the princess of Jincheng. Madame Jeanne was not only the #1 beauty of Corisi model, but also the #1 sage of Corisi model. She might be able to give him some advice. This was also the main reason why Song Qingshu came here. The entire Xingqing prefecture has been searched everywhere. I really can't figure out how Huan Bai disappeared without a trace. Song Qingshu had a headache. The princess of Jincheng is so pitiful. She was sent to a poor place for marriage at such a young age, but in the end, she ended up like this. After listening to his story, Madame Jeanne asked for some details. After thinking for a long time, she said, "Maybe you can't see the situation clearly. Is it possible that this is the case?" Hearing Madame Jeanne's analysis, Song Qingshu couldn't help but sit up instantly, and his eyes became brighter and brighter. He couldn't help but hug Madame Jeanne and kiss her. In the future, if anyone dares to say that they have big breasts and no brains, I will slap them to death. Madam, you are so smart. No wonder you are called the #1 sage of Corisi model. These years, you have been a headache for the Mongolians. I solved such a difficult problem for you. Is there a reward for me, young master? Madame Jeanne licked her lips lightly and smiled charmingly. Song Qingshu's heart warmed up. What kind of reward do you want, madam? I want to play the game of horse riding. As Madame Jeanne spoke, her slender hands had already reached into Song Qingshu's clothes. Chapter 2244. Early the next morning, Song Qingshu went to the yellow-robed woman's house to look for her. Did you find Huan Bai? The yellow-robed woman simply wiped her face with water. Even without any makeup, her beauty could not be hidden. No, Song Qingshu could not help but sigh. I finally understand what it means to say hibiscus grows in clear water and nature carves. The yellow-robed woman frowned, obviously dissatisfied with his glib tongue. You seem to be in a good mood. You must have found something. This time, I came to invite you to find the culprit. Song Qingshu's eyes were inexplicably complicated. Who was the culprit? The yellow-robed woman immediately became spirited. Song Qingshu shook his head. Haste makes waste. You will know when you come with me. Seeing that he deliberately kept her in suspense, the yellow-robed woman could not help but grit her teeth, but she could only suppress her doubts and follow him. Why did you take me out of the city? The yellow-robed woman's face was a little pale. Now, they were outside the west gate of Xingqing Prefecture. If she was not skilled in martial arts, she might be worried that the culprit would trick her into going to a deserted place to rape her. Too many things have happened in the city these days, disturbing your mood. Why don't you sit down and have some tea and enjoy the scenery of the Northwest? Song Qingshu led her to a tea house near the city gate and said while pouring tea for her. After walking for so long, the yellow-robed woman was really thirsty. She picked up the teacup and took a sip, but she could not help but frown and put down the teacup again. She was born in the royal family, so whether in Skywave Prefecture or Jinshan Academy, the tea she drank was superior. The tea in a roadside tea house in the bitter cold Northwest could not be better. She said, I did not come with you to drink tea. Where is the culprit? The culprit is not here. Song Qingshu enjoyed the taste of this coarse tea. He was not a noble who grew up in luxury, so this kind of tea made him feel a sense of familiarity and nostalgia. Are you making fun of me? The yellow-robed woman's eyelids twitched. She suddenly felt that the man in front of her was becoming more and more annoying, and he was becoming more and more like a bastard in her memory. How would I dare to fool around with a girl? The murderer isn't here now, but that doesn't mean he won't be here later. What we need to do now is wait patiently. Noticing that the yellow-robed woman's anxiety was completely different from her usual calm demeanor, Song Qingshu secretly sighed. He knew it from the time she went to the Jin Kingdom's laundry yard to save her sisters who had fallen into poverty. She could be calm in other matters, but every time it was related to her sisters, she could not stay calm. Wait, the yellow-robed woman said in confusion. Why don't you just tell me, and I'll go and catch him? Why are we wasting our time here? It won't work if I say it. Song Qingshu shook his finger. Miss usually has a good temperament. You can't even wait for this little bit of time, right? The yellow-robed woman bit her lips. Okay, I'll wait with you. If it turns out that you lied to me, I'll beat you up. Song Qingshu couldn't help saying, You're so fierce. Be careful that you won't be able to get married in the future. The yellow-robed woman seemed to be reminded of something sad, and her face instantly sank. What does it have to do with you whether I get married or not? If you dare to talk too much, I'll tell Bao Chai that you flirted with me. Seeing that her face was not good, Song Qingshu wisely closed his mouth and no longer added fuel to the fire. After waiting for more than 2 hours, suddenly a group of people came out of the city gate. The yellow-robed woman couldn't help but be stunned. Why did the Tubo envoy leave? Song Qingshu said, I just got the news. It seems that there is something wrong with the old Zanpu, so the Tubo envoy hurried back. You also know that the old emperor is critically ill, and the new emperor is outside, which is the most dangerous thing. Compared with the position of Zanpu, the matter of the princess is not a big deal. This is outrageous. Are they going to let Jin Sheng be wronged like this and go to the underworld with a lifetime of hatred? The yellow-robed woman slammed the table and stood up. She was going to find Zanpu to settle the score. Song Qingshu hurriedly pulled her back. Don't be impulsive. Be careful of alerting the enemy. Do you mean that the murderer isn't their envoy? The yellow-robed woman immediately caught the meaning of his words. Song Qingshu didn't answer, but got up and said, Now we need to go to a high point to observe. Take me to the top of that big tree. Originally, the city tower was the best point of observation, but the city tower was too big and a little far. It was more hidden on the top of the tree. The yellow-robed woman hesitated for a moment, but still nodded. She grabbed his shoulder and gently jumped to the highest tree nearby. Song Qingshu had to sigh that sometimes pretending to be weak also had many benefits. For example, being held so intimately by a beautiful woman, smelling the delicate fragrance of a young girl, feeling the young and soft body of a young girl, was really difficult to achieve in other times. Don't come so close to me, the yellow-robed woman said a little uncomfortably. Song Qing-shu looked innocent. It's so high. I'm afraid I'll fall. The yellow-robed woman frowned. She was about to get angry, but she thought of the important matter and restrained herself. What do you want to observe? Song Qing-shu didn't answer. Instead, he began to focus on the scene. The yellow-robed woman noticed that he wasn't looking in the direction of the Tubo envoy, but the onlookers along the way. Could he see clearly from so far away? The yellow-robed woman couldn't help but feel a little confused. It should be known that with her power, she couldn't see clearly from a distance. Was he pretending to look around, or was he really observing? Found it! Song Qing-shu's eyes were so sharp that he finally found the target. At this time, in the crowd, a figure watched the Tubo convoy gradually go away. Finally, he secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and a trace of a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, he suddenly stopped because there were already two people standing in front of him. Song Qing-shu said with a smile, "Where do you plan to go?" That person's expression changed. He hurriedly lowered his head and pretended not to understand. He wanted to leave from the side, but was grabbed by the yellow-robed woman. "I want to see who exactly you are." As she spoke, she pulled off the scarf that was covering his face. When she saw the other person's appearance, she was immediately dumbfounded. How can it be you? Although the person in front of her was dressed in coarse hemp clothes, it still couldn't hide her graceful figure. Her skin was fair, and one look was enough to tell that she didn't do rough work. Her eyebrows were beautiful and dignified. Impressively, she was the already dead princess of Jincheng. Princess of Jincheng sighed. "How exactly did you find me?" At this time, not to mention her, even the yellow-robed woman was puzzled. She turned her head to look at Song Qing-shu. "What exactly is going on?" Song Qing-shu said, "This morning, I first went to the Tubo embassy. I originally wanted to persuade them to pretend to leave, but I didn't expect that they would really leave after receiving the news that Zanpu was seriously ill. So, I took advantage of the situation and asked the people from Class 1 Hall to spread the news of their departure in the city. In fact, it was to let you, who was hiding in the dark, know. As expected, you had to personally confirm that the Tubo envoy had left before you could finally be at ease." Chapter 2245. In fact, when I first saw that the corpse's face was destroyed, I was a little suspicious. Although I could explain it by saying that you lost control of your emotions after being humiliated and were too ashamed to face others, it would still make people think that you were the mastermind. But I still didn't think that you were the mastermind. Instead, I suspected that you were replaced and captured, Song Qing-shu answered. But later, Miss Yang confirmed that it was your will, so I overturned this guess. After all, it's easy to capture you, but it's almost impossible to make you write such a will willingly. He paused for a moment and said, "Some time ago, you asked me to tell Miss Yang and the others to come and accompany you more. I believe that you want them to be able to recognize your notes in the future, right?" Princess Jincheng did not deny it. "Everyone says that you're the most ignorant and incompetent child in Lin and City, but I think you are very smart. The reason why we were suspicious is that we couldn't find the servant girl, Huan Bai." Song Qing-shu continued, "You must know that nowadays we need to have a travel permit issued by the government to stay in the city. The embassies of various countries and the mansions of the nobles in the city are all monitored by Class 1 Hall spies. Besides, they have issued a bounty for her arrest. Huan Bai is a slave, she doesn't have a travel permit, and she is also a stranger from a foreign land. How could she escape from the search? But we just can't find her, so there is only one possibility. She's already dead, or she doesn't exist at all. How can she not exist? We even talked to Huan Bai in the Tubo guest house." The yellow-robed woman was a little puzzled. "That Huan Bai is probably the princess in disguise, right?" Song Qing-shu cast a deep glance at Princess Jincheng. "And the princess who hanged herself is probably the real Huan Bai," the yellow-robed woman hurriedly said, "but we have all seen Huan Bai, and the princess doesn't know how to change her appearance." Suddenly, she stopped talking and thought of a terrifying guess. What if we just take off Huan Bai's face? Song Qing-shu's tone was a little cold. Didn't the person who hanged herself have a bloody face? At that time, he was so shocked that the princess committed suicide that he did not pay too much attention to the appearance of a maidservant. Otherwise, if he looked carefully, he would have been able to see the flaws. Among the entire Tubo envoys, you and Huan Bai have the fairest skin. That's why no one noticed anything wrong after exchanging identities. Song Qing-shu looked at the quiet and delicate woman in front of him. It was really difficult to associate her with a crazy murderer. After all, the human skin mask can't last long. After 2 days, it's easy to reveal the flaw, so you quickly chose to disappear. Huan Bai is a servant, so she doesn't have a travel permit. You, on the other hand, are different. With your status, it wouldn't be difficult for you to get an official travel permit. Furthermore, the wanted poster has Huan Bai's portrait on it. Even if we turn the entire Qing manor upside down, we still wouldn't be able to catch you. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but sigh that the other party's plan was flawless. Only when they couldn't find Huan Bai after searching the mountains and searching the seas did they give themselves away. In reality, all of this was reminded by Madame Jeanne. She was different from them, who were on good terms with the princess of Jincheng. She would not subconsciously exclude the princess from the beginning, so she immediately proposed another line of thought and speculation. Song Qing-shu thought along her suggestion and realized that everything could be explained. It just happened to confirm the saying, eliminate all the impossible. No matter how unbelievable the remaining thing was, it was still the truth. Is it really like this? The yellow-robed girl looked at her sister in disbelief. The princess of Jincheng's expression was indifferent. Although there are some small differences, it is generally, as Baoyu said. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but say, I've always thought that the princess is a gentle, elegant, and kind woman. I didn't expect you to be so ruthless and cruel. I heard that Huan Bai grew up with you and even accompanied you to marry into a foreign land. How could you be so vicious? What do you know? The princess of Jincheng suddenly became agitated. It was Huan Bai who betrayed me first. Song Qing-shu and the yellow-robed girl looked at each other and suddenly remembered the confession of the Dian Song twin swords. It seemed that they had indeed bribed Huan Bai. The princess of Jincheng continued. That day, I accidentally discovered that Huan Bai had sneakily drugged my tea. I quietly swapped my tea with hers and watched coldly from the sidelines. Only then did I find out about their ruthless plot. Thus, I beat them at their own game. That's how all of this happened. The yellow-robed girl couldn't help but say, you could have exposed all of this. Why did you do so much and take such a big risk? One can only be a thief for 1,000 days. How can one guard against a thief for 1,000 days? The princess of Jincheng bit her lip. This time, I was lucky to see through their plot. What if I don't discover it next time? What kind of tragic end will await me then? The yellow-robed girl understood that what she said made sense. For example, this time, if she really fell for it, it could be said that her reputation would be ruined and her life would be worse than death. Song Qing-shu shook his head and said, that's not right. From the details at the end, you prepared many things in advance. For example, you asked Miss Yang to practice calligraphy and the identity travel permit. It was not an impromptu decision. Those were indeed what I had been preparing all along. Unexpectedly, the princess of Jincheng admitted directly, I married far away at a young age in Tubo. Tubo is bitter and barren, far from the customs of the Great Song. I can bear it, but the Tubo people retain the custom of replacing the younger brother and replacing the father after the death of the father. Their women are just a kind of resource that can be inherited. As Zon Pu's health worsened, Zong Zan's desire became more and more undisguised. He had openly molested me several times. I have been well-educated since I was young, so how can I bear this kind of barbaric custom? I really can't bear the thought of not only remarrying, but also marrying my nominal son. Thus, I have been secretly plotting. This time, I discovered the plot of Si Siluo and the others to bribe Huan Bai. So I pushed the boat with the current and wanted to use this opportunity to completely escape from the abyss of suffering. I have said what I need to say. Are you planning to arrest me and bring me to justice? The princess of Jincheng's tone was exceptionally calm, as if she had already expected the consequences of failure from the beginning when she decided to do this. The yellow-shirted woman's expression changed. Finally, she pulled Song Qingshu aside and said, "I want to ask you for a favor." Song Qingshu couldn't help but laugh. "It's really rare that you actually have a favor to ask of me." Seeing that he was still pretending to be obedient after getting a bargain, the yellow-shirted woman wanted to beat him up. However, she still knew that business was more important. "Can you not make today's matter public? Are you planning to cover up for her?" Song Qingshu's expression was a little playful. She didn't do anything wrong in the first place. So what if she exposed everything? Are you going to watch her go back and marry that disgusting fatty Zongzan? The yellow-shirted woman was also a little agitated. She was sent here for marriage at such a young age. She has sacrificed enough. I don't want to see her have an extremely miserable ending. Song Qingshu pondered. Speaking of which, the princess of Jincheng didn't hurt anyone. The only one was Huan Bai, who betrayed her master. In this society, it was a taboo for a servant to betray her master. Killing her would be in line with the laws of any country. The rest of the matter was done by Si Siluo, and she was just taking advantage of the situation. After all, this matter is very important. Song Qingshu was about to change the topic, but who knew that the yellow-shirt woman thought that he didn't agree. She immediately became anxious. "As long as you help me hide this matter, I can promise to do one thing for you." Chapter 2246. Of course it's true. Seeing the other person's eyes light up, the yellow-robed girl became angry. However, she had a favor to ask, so she could only restrain herself. "Can I do anything?" Song Qingshu's eyes couldn't help but wander around her body. "What do you want?" The yellow-robed girl's eyes carried a dangerous glint. "I'll tell you when I think about it. Don't worry, it's definitely not as dirty as you think." After receiving the promise of a beautiful girl, his depressed mood couldn't help but relax. After the two finished their discussion, they walked over to Princess Jincheng together. The yellow-robed girl said, "You have no choice. Come with us to the diplomatic mission so that we can take care of you." Princess Jincheng shook her head and refused. "There are many people in the diplomatic mission. My identity can easily be exposed. It will cause a huge uproar. My existence will bring shame to the two countries. The court won't ignore it. What will you do then? Moreover, it wasn't easy for me to obtain freedom. I really don't want to take any more risks." The yellow-robed girl bit her lip. She wanted to persuade her, but she knew that the other person's worries were not unreasonable. She couldn't persuade her. After a long time, she couldn't help but sigh. "But the situation is so chaotic now. If you don't go to the diplomatic mission, I'm worried that no one will take care of you." "Don't worry. I've already mentally prepared myself. Now that I've obtained freedom, every breath of air seems to carry sweetness. This little difficulty is nothing." Princess Jincheng's face was brimming with happiness. Like a canary that had escaped from its cage, she looked forward to the future of freedom. Seeing that she had made up her mind, the yellow-robed girl couldn't persuade her anymore. The two chatted for a while before Princess Jincheng floated away. Looking at her departing figure, the yellow-robed girl couldn't help but sigh. She sacrificed her happiness for the country and has been lonely all these years. Now that she can completely obtain freedom, it can be considered a good thing. However, Song Qingshu said, "You people are used to living in luxury since you were young. You want freedom, but when you really have freedom, you will miss the luxury of the past." All these years, Princess Jincheng even had someone to serve her tea. I don't think she can get used to living by herself. The yellow-robed woman was taken aback. She could not help but turn her head to look at him in surprise. "I know I'm handsome, but you don't have to stare at me without blinking, right?" Song Qingshu said with a shy expression. The yellow-robed woman spat. "I suddenly realized that you're not as much of an idiot as I thought you were. Your thoughts and opinions are quite profound." Song Qingshu said proudly. "Of course. Who knew that the yellow-robed woman would immediately sneer, but didn't you also grow up in luxury?" Saying all this is just making a fuss. Only then did Song Qingshu realize that with Jia Baoyu's current identity, These words were indeed unconvincing. Let's go back first. Remember what you promised. Don't let it slip when the time comes, the yellow-robed woman reminded. Don't worry. As Song Qinshu spoke, he could not help but look in the direction that Princess Jinsheng had left in. It was a chaotic time. Was it really reassuring for a beautiful woman like her to travel alone? After Princess Jin Chung left Xingqing Manor, she happily headed southeast. Ever since she was young, her delicate shoulders had always borne all kinds of responsibilities. Now that she was finally free from all of this, she could live for herself for the first time. This feeling was really good. However, no matter how excited she was, she could not surpass the objective limits of her physical strength. After walking for almost 10 li, she felt that her feet were not her own anymore. She looked up and saw a run-down temple nearby. Princess Jinsheng decided to rest her feet. She took off her shoes and socks and looked at her red feet. Princess Jinsheng could not help but miss the times when there were carriages and palanquins everywhere. At that time, she could call a servant girl to bring hot water for her to soak in to relieve her fatigue. However, this thought only flashed by. Compared to freedom, what was this? Jinsha Chinese, after walking for a while, she felt a little hungry. She took out the pastries that she had prepared from her bag. She had made ample preparations for this day. Suddenly, there was a commotion not far away. Princess Jinsheng looked up and saw 4 or 5 people in ragged clothes staring at the pastries in her hands and salivating. It was clear that these people had been sleeping behind the rundown temple and had been attracted by the fragrance of the pastries. Princess Jinsheng noticed that these people were emaciated. It was obvious that they had been starving for many days. Princess Jinsheng was kind-hearted. She raised her hand and gently said, "Take these pastries and eat them." "Thank you." The eyes of the group lit up when they heard this. They all rushed to grab the pastries from her hands. Princess Jinsheng quickly retracted her hand. She had never been so close to a man in her life. Just now, those people almost touched her hand. However, seeing their stomachs rumbling, Princess Jinsheng could not bear to blame them. Instead, she sympathized with them. In this chaotic world, who knew how many people were suffering like this? "Don't worry, there's more here." Princess Jinsheng quickly opened her luggage. In order to escape from the confinement this time, she had prepared a lot of dry food and travel expenses. These refugees were too pitiful. She distributed the dry food to them first and then went to the next town to buy more. "Thank you, little lady. You're really a living Buddha." The group of people hurriedly stuffed food into their mouths. As they swallowed, they spoke in a muffled voice. Their eyes glanced at her luggage from time to time. When she opened her bag, there seemed to be a lot of gold, silver, and jewelry inside. A tinge of pink flashed across Princess Jinsheng's fair face. She said guiltily, "You are exaggerating. How can I be considered a living bodhisattva?" She thought of her maid. Although she had wronged her first, the two of them had been master and servant for so many years. In the end, they ended up like this. Princess Jinsheng felt quite guilty. After those people wolfed down the food, they looked at her fair and beautiful face and couldn't help but ask, "Why did you come out alone?" "My brother went to scout ahead. He'll be back in a while." Princess Jinsheng was not stupid. She kept an eye out when she was outside. "Little lady, you must be from a wealthy family, right?" someone asked with a smile. Princess Jinsheng was startled. "Why do you say that?" She was wearing coarse hem clothes. She should not be any different from an ordinary peasant woman. The young lady's skin is so soft and tender, her skin is so white, and her body also smells so good. We have never seen such a beautiful person by our side. The few people began to talk at once. Princess Jinsheng frowned slightly. She was not used to being judged by a group of strangers like this. It felt very strange. "You guys continue eating. I will leave first." Princess Jinsheng got up and was about to leave. Who knew that a few figures would suddenly block her way? Those people were blocking the door. "Didn't you want to wait for brother here? Why are you leaving so soon?" Princess Jinsheng's heart skipped a beat. She hurriedly said, "I will go outside to find him." Someone laughed. "I don't think he is a biological brother. He should be a love brother." From the looks of it, she must have eloped with a love brother. Chapter 2247. Princess Jinsheng's face turned cold. What do you mean? She was born into the royal family and later married into the Tubo Empire. It could be said that she had been in a high position for a long time. She naturally had an inviolable aura, scaring the men into taking a step back. However, that was all. The men immediately reacted and couldn't help but become angry. They didn't understand why they would be scared by a weak woman's aura. It's nothing. Little lady, don't be in a hurry to leave. We haven't seen a woman in a long time. Talk to us. I don't think there's any need to find a brother. We can all be your brothers. Ha ha! Hearing the vulgar slang around her, Princess Jinsheng finally panicked. How can you do this? I just gave you food. She didn't understand. She had helped them out of kindness. It was fine if they didn't return the favor, but why were they biting the hand that fed them? So, little lady, if you help us, you'll help us till the end. Not only are we hungry, we haven't tasted a woman for a long time. Little lady, you're so beautiful. So please do us a favor and give us your body. She could faintly smell the stench of the other person's breath. The princess of Jinsheng screamed and ran out with all her might. However, she was used to living like a princess. How could she be faster than the other person? She was immediately pulled back. She screamed and struggled with all her might. However, how could her strength compare to the men? As she struggled, her clothes were constantly torn, emitting an ear-piercing sound of cloth tearing. Looking at the beautiful, noble, and usually unreachable woman struggling beneath them, feeling the sensation of her beautiful and mature body, the men became more and more excited. Their breathing became heavy, and their eyes turned red. They felt as though their bodies were about to explode, and they wanted nothing more than to crush her and swallow her into their stomachs. Princess Jinsheng couldn't help but tear up. She knew that her fate was unavoidable. She couldn't break free from these men's iron-like hands. Now, she was filled with regret. She regretted taking the risk to come out. She regretted listening to the yellow-shirt woman and returning to the Southern Song diplomatic mission with her to avoid this disaster. Bastard! At this moment, she suddenly heard an old voice. Immediately after, Princess Jinsheng felt her body lighten. The men all fell to the ground with their eyes wide open. It was obvious that they were filled with disbelief and regret that they were just one step away from eating swan meat. Princess Jinsheng could naturally see that these people were already dead. She hurriedly pulled up her clothes and retreated with a terrified expression. At this moment, her body was trembling incessantly. She only gradually calmed down when she saw the appearance of the incomers. The person's white beard fluttered, and he wore patched clothes. He was an old beggar. Princess Jinsheng estimated that he was at least 70 or 80 years old. I did not expect our beggar clan to have such a scum. I have frightened madam. The old beggar said apologetically. His expression was very kind. The beggar laughed. Madam, I am. I'm not as I said. I am Mississippi, madam. Jinsheng. I am. The old beggar laughed aloud. Madam, please don't laugh at me. I am not as capable as Hong Bangzhu. My surname is Su, and I am the oldest elder in the beggar clan. So it's Senior Su. Princess Jinsheng heaved a sigh of relief. The beggar clan was an upright sect, and this person was a highly respected elder. Inexplicably, he gave people a sense of security. 123 reading net elder Su looked at her snow-white skin, which was exposed through her tattered clothes, and a strange expression appeared on his face. Noticing his gaze, Princess Jinsheng hurriedly tightened her clothes. However, the struggle just now caused her clothes to be full of holes. How could she cover them all? Elder Su coughed and said, It's a pity that I didn't bring any clothes with me this time. The one I'm wearing is also full of patches. Moreover, it's the proof of my identity in the beggar clan. Otherwise, I could have covered madam's face. Princess Jinsheng blushed. I don't dare to trouble Elder Su. I have a change of clothes in my bag. Elder Su said, Madam, please go and change your clothes. Now, Princess Jinsheng was shocked. She wanted to change her clothes immediately, but there were a few corpses in the temple and a strange man. How could she change? Elder Su couldn't help but laugh. Why? Are you afraid that an old man like me will peek? I don't dare. Princess Jincheng blushed. I'll go and change now. If she insisted on not changing, wouldn't it be obvious that she didn't trust him? He had just saved her. Moreover, she didn't feel comfortable wearing such tattered clothes. That's right, I almost forgot. I don't know where these scum got their hands on the yin-yang harmony powder, but they just drugged Madam. Madam, take the antidote quickly. Otherwise, when the effects of the drug attack your heart, you'll burn yourself to death. Elder Su opened his palm, revealing a vermilion red pill. When did they drug it? Princess Jincheng was shocked. Although she didn't know what the yin-yang harmony powder was, she could roughly guess from its name. Elder Su answered, Madam, did you smell a strange smell just now? Princess Jincheng nodded subconsciously. I did smell something strange. Just now, when those men were hugging her, the smell on their bodies and in their mouths made her want to vomit. In her mind, that was the strangest smell. That's it. Elder Su let out a long sigh. His tone was full of anger. This time, the beggar gang came to Xixia with a large number of people. However, they're a mix of good and bad people. I don't know how these people met the 4 evildoers of Xixia and obtained such an evil and despicable medicine from them. It's all thanks to Elder Su. Princess Jincheng covered her chest as she took the pill and swallowed it. She had heard a little about the 4 evildoers, especially Yunzhong. Now that she thought about it, she couldn't help but feel a lingering fear. Madam, you are too polite. This is what I should do. Elder Su laughed happily. An inexplicable light flashed in the depths of his eyes. After Princess Jincheng ate the pill, she felt a wave of heat slide into her lower abdomen. Then it nourished her limbs and bones. It made her previously cold body feel a little warmer. She thought that Elder Su's medicine was really effective. Noticing that Elder Su's back was facing her, she blushed and took out a dress from her luggage. She hid behind the wall and confirmed that Elder Su's back was facing her. Then, she started to change out of her torn old clothes with her heart beating faster. Feeling the coolness in the air, Princess Jincheng's delicate skin had a layer of goosebumps. Her snow-white skin still maintained the youthful fire of a young girl. Her slender and plump body fully exuded the charm of a young married woman. It was no wonder that those people would do such a thing before. Chapter 2248. Elder, what are you doing? Princess Jincheng was filled with anger. Elder Su snickered and did not answer. He asked in response, what is Foreign's identity? Princess Jincheng bit her lower lip. I come from a scholarly family and have recently returned to my paternal home to visit. Visit? Elder Su's expression was puzzled. I don't think so. What do you mean? Princess Jincheng was furious and did not even call him Elder. Elder Su looked in the direction of Xingqing Fu. Foreign does not know, but a few days ago, during the martial contest for marriage, I saw Foreign from afar. Princess Jincheng was shocked and hurriedly said, you got the wrong person. I don't know about the martial contest for marriage. Elder Su snickered. The Tufan barbarian's Wang Fei is actually dignified and virtuous, beautiful and clean. Foreign was as eye-catching as the bright moon among the barbarians. How can I get the wrong person? Princess Jincheng's heart sank. She pulled on the corner of her clothes to cover her body as she asked, what do you want? I heard that the Tufan Wang Fei hanged herself because she could not bear the humiliation. Who would have thought that Wang Fei is here, safe and sound? It must have been Wang Fei's plan to escape. Elder Su had lived for decades and guessed most of the matter in a flash. If people know that Wang Fei is still alive, I fear that the world will be in an uproar. At that time, no matter if it is Tufan or the Great Song, Wang Fei will not have a foothold. Princess Jincheng gritted her teeth, and her lips turned slightly white. What do you mean? When I first saw Wang Fei from afar, I was subdued by Wang Fei's beauty, nobility, and elegance. I thought about you day and night and could not sleep. Now that I finally have the chance, will Wang Fei let me have my wish? As Elder Su spoke, he moved closer to her. Looking at her dazzling white skin, he could not help but swallow. You shameless! Princess Jincheng trembled with anger. She had never thought that the other would have such dirty thoughts at such an old age. How good is Princess Consort killing people to escape? Elder Su sneered. Wang Fei managed to escape with great difficulty, so I'm sure you don't want to return to the cage again. Today, as long as you satisfy this old man's wish, you can still live the free life you want. Otherwise, if the secret is exposed, everything you've done before will be in vain, and you'll be condemned and despised by everyone. Princess Jinsheng was startled. She knew that he was speaking the truth. From the moment she took that step, there was no turning back. Was she really willing to go back and be a canary again? Seeing that she was silent and her attitude seemed to have softened, Elder Su continued. Wang Fei, you don't have to worry too much. All I want is a night of pleasure. After today, you will walk your sunny path, and I will walk my single log bridge. At this time, no one will know. From now on, you can peacefully live the life you want. Although he said this, he was sneering in his heart. Such a beautiful Wang Fei was usually high and mighty. She was not someone like him could touch. How could it be enough to play with her once? Now, he would let her yield temporarily and enjoy her initiative for once. After that, he would slowly train her. As for her identity as the princess of the Southern Song dynasty and a Xixiao Wang Fei, it was not a problem at all. Anyway, in everyone's eyes, she was already a dead person. Naturally, he could play with her however he wanted. Princess Jinsheng's expression changed. She was also considering the pros and cons of this matter. Should she endure it for the sake of her hard-won freedom and treat it as if she was bitten by a dog? However, this thought only flashed by. It should be known that the reason why she made up her mind to escape was that after old Zanpu died, she would be taken in by Zhong Zan as a concubine. She couldn't bear the humiliation of being pampered by both father and son. She risked her life to escape because she didn't want to be bitten by a dog. Now, if she gave in to this dirty old man, what was the point of her persistence? Stop your wishful thinking. I won't let you succeed. Princess Jinsheng's eyes revealed a determined look. Ebook seeing him approach, she took out a dagger and placed it against her neck. If you dare to take another step forward, I will cut my own throat on the spot. She had brought a dagger for self-defense, but she had left it in her bag. After what happened with the men earlier, she had become more cautious. Don't be impulsive, Wang Fei. I will retreat. Elder Su raised his hands to indicate that he was not a threat and slowly retreated. Princess Jinsheng was startled. She didn't expect him to be so easy to talk to. At this time, Elder Su spoke. Actually, Wang Fei, you don't have to resist me like this. Perhaps you will come and beg me soon. Sensing that there was a hidden meaning in his words, Princess Jinsheng frowned. What do you mean? Elder Su laughed aloud. Wang Fei, do you feel that your body is a bit hot right now? Princess Jinsheng was startled. Only now did she realize that she was indeed a bit hot. Normally, she was very afraid of the cold, but now that her clothes were disheveled, she didn't feel cold at all. She couldn't help but pale. What did you do to me? Elder Su stroked his beard and said with a smile, Wang Fei, do you still remember the antidote you just took? Ah, Princess Jinsheng exclaimed. She wasn't stupid. At this point, how could she not understand that the red pill wasn't an antidote? What did you give me? Elder Su noticed that the other party's eyes were glistening with tears, and he felt his lower abdomen heating up. Didn't I just tell Princess? It's the famous yin-yang harmony powder. Princess, do you feel that your body is burning up and you want to have a strong arm to lean on? Princess Jinsheng already felt that her body was a bit strange. Now that she heard what he said, she felt her body become more sensitive. Her legs seemed to be a bit weak. She finally became anxious. Don't come over, otherwise. Before she could finish speaking, Elder Su took advantage of the moment she was distracted and jumped to her side. He knocked the dagger out of her hand. Princess Jinsheng cried out in alarm and hurriedly tried to escape. Unfortunately, how could she catch up to the other party's speed? Elder Su hugged her in his arms. Feeling the softness and fullness in his arms, his entire body couldn't help but tremble with excitement. After so many years, it was likely that only the horse madam had given him such a feeling. However, Madam was too flirtatious. She wasn't as chaste and gentle as the other. The temptation she gave was greater. Beauty, come quickly. This old man will serve Wang Fei well. Thinking that the high and mighty Wang Fei was at his mercy, Elder Su felt that his body was about to explode. Don't! Princess Jinsheng struggled with all her might, but her body became hotter and hotter. In an instant, her blood vessels surged and her desire surged. It was as though the vulgar old man in front of her wasn't so annoying. Elder Su could feel the delicate breathing of the beauty in his arms, her fragrance wafting through the air. Especially with the effects of the medicine, her cheeks were like fire, making her look indescribably charming. He swallowed his saliva with difficulty. He felt that this was probably the happiest moment of his life. Beauty, I'm coming. Elder Su quickly took off his clothes. Just as he was about to press down on her, he suddenly heard a mocking voice. Su Chongxiao of the Beggar Clan is the oldest and most respected elder in the Beggar Clan. He's a hero that everyone respects. I didn't expect him to be such a despicable and shameless pervert. Elder Su felt as though a basin of cold water had been poured over his head. He hurriedly turned around. Who is it? Chapter 2249. Elder Su looked back, but the temple was empty. There was no one else in the temple except for the body on the ground. He was old, but not stupid. He knew that it was not an illusion. Someone must be here. But no matter how hard he looked, he could not find anyone else in the room. Suddenly, he realized something and turned around. He felt like he was soaked in ice water. Princess Jinsheng was lying there just now. Where was she now? If it was not for her fragrance in the air, he might have thought that everything that had just happened was an illusion. Are you a human or a ghost? Su Zhonglao drew a short stick from his back. His seniority in the Beggar Clan was very high, and his martial arts skill was considered one of the best in the Beggar Clan. He had learned several styles of the dog-beating stick technique. Now only the Beggar Clan's secret manual could give him a sense of security. You don't have to be afraid of ghosts knocking at your door in the middle of the night. It seems that you have done a lot of bad things in your life. A cold voice sounded in his ear. Elder Su suddenly turned his head and saw a young man standing 10 feet away from him with his hands clasped behind his back. Elder Su couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. In the blink of an eye, this young man had moved more than 10 feet away from him, but he couldn't even hear the slightest sound of the wind. Who the hell are you? Elder Su asked, forcing himself to remain calm. The young man ignored him. Instead, he looked him up and down. Looking at your clothes, you must be from the Beggar Gang? Elder Su was happy and said, Yes, I'm the most senior in the Beggar Gang, Elder Su Chongxiao. You must be a friend of the Beggar Gang. It seemed that the young man was afraid of the Beggar Gang. Elder Su used his identity to make the young man hesitate. With the Beggar Gang as his backing, few people would dare to offend him. As for his reputation, there would be a way to explain it in the future. I was wondering why there would be such a shameless person like you in the Beggar Gang. So you're a Su Chongxiao. The young man was Song Qingshu. He knew that Princess Jinsheng had been pampered since she was young. It was difficult for her to survive alone in this chaotic world. Moreover, she was a beautiful woman. The more beautiful a woman was, the more trouble she would have. So he and the yellow-dressed woman went back to the embassy to settle down and sneaked out. As expected, Princess Jinsheng was about to be bullied. Do you know me? Su Chongxiao could not help but be stunned. He clearly did not know this young man in front of him. After Feng abdicated his position, he went out to enjoy the limelight for a while. After that, he spent most of his time at home, so it was normal that he did not know the other party. Song Qingshu suddenly asked, Mrs. Ma should be very beautiful, right? The other party's words immediately triggered Su Chongxiao's memories. He instinctively replied, of the beauty of the world. Among all the women he had met in his life, perhaps only Chief Huang and Princess Jinsheng could compare to Madame Ma. However, he immediately reacted, and his expression changed. What do you mean? Song Qingshu sneered and said, Others may not know what happened between you and Madame Ma, but do you think I don't know? I thought you just couldn't control yourself for a moment, but I didn't expect you to be blinded by lust to this point. You even openly committed those lewd acts. I think you have misunderstood, young hero. There is nothing between me and Madame Ma. Su Chongxiao hurriedly tried to explain. However, Song Qingshu was too lazy to listen to his nonsense. With a wave of his hand, a wisp of sword chi shot out. Su Chongxiao suddenly felt the danger and hurriedly wanted to dodge. But how could he? In an instant, his life was destroyed by the sword chi. Thank you for saving me, young master. At this time, a woman's voice sounded faintly beside him. The voice was delicate and charming, as sweet as honey. Song Qingshu said with a smile. Does the princess not remember me? Princess Jinsheng was stunned. She opened her big watery eyes and looked at him carefully. Suddenly, a scene in Tubo appeared in her memory. You are the Song Qingshu who came to Tubo to seek medical treatment? Song Qingshu said with a smile. The princess memory is really good. You still remember after so long. Of course I remember. Back then, I invited you over to ask you some things about Jiangnan. Princess Jinsheng's face had an additional trace of a smile. Furthermore, I later heard that you were a great benefactor to the Song Kingdom and were recruited as the son-in-law of the twin phoenixes. Speaking of which, you are my brother-in-law. Perhaps it was because of the effects of a drug, but her voice had a slight tremble and was extremely sweet. Then, should I call you sister? Song Qingshu also smiled. At this time, the princess still does not forget to take advantage of me. I really admire you. Princess Jinsheng finally realized her situation. She couldn't help but make a sound and hurriedly shrank back. Can you turn around? Song Qingshu criticized silently. He thought, you're mostly dressed and only show your arms and thighs. Is there a need to do this? However, he still did as he was told and turned around. Listening to the princess breathing, it doesn't seem to be right. Chong, are you injured or something? I was drugged by that old man. Princess Jinsheng's voice carried a sobbing tone. That drug? Song Qingshu stilled and couldn't help but curse silently. This Su Chongxiao was so old, yet he was still so perverted that he had to rely on drugs. It seems to be some yin-yang harmony powder, Princess Jinsheng hurriedly said. She could feel the evil from the name of the drug. Yin-yang harmony powder? Song Qingshu had a strange expression on his face. So it was this medicine. Speaking of which, they were old acquaintances. Feeling the fear and trembling of the beauty behind him, he comforted her. Don't worry. This isn't a poison. It's easy to cure. Princess Jinsheng's hand tightly gripped the dagger in her sleeve. Her voice trembled as she said, You are my brother-in-law. You cannot do anything to let them down. Song Qingshu stilled and couldn't help but turn his head. What are you saying? Princess Jinsheng placed the dagger on her neck. Don't come over. I was hesitant just now and almost let that Su guy get his hands on me. I won't make the same mistake again. As she spoke, the dagger in her hand sliced toward her neck. Song Qingshu was shocked. He took a step forward and used so close, yet worlds apart to knock the dagger out of her hand. He said angrily, Are you crazy? I didn't expect you to be such a person. Being hugged by the man, Princess Jinsheng felt a strong masculine aura. Her body softened, and she almost had the urge to submit to him. However, she retained the last shred of clarity and bit her tongue. However, with Song Qingshu's cultivation, he held her chin with one hand and tapped her neck with the other, causing her mouth to lose strength. After a while, he reacted. Do you think I want to bully you? Isn't that so? Princess Jinsheng wasn't used to being so close to a man, so she hurriedly turned her face away. I already said that it is easy to cure the poison, Song Qingshu said with a frown. New mobile phone update. Shameless. Princess Jinsheng spat. However, at this moment, her entire body was soaked in sweat. Her entire body was very hot, and there was an extreme desire in the depths of her soul. She couldn't control herself and hugged him. That she didn't expect that she would do such a shameful action. However, she couldn't control this feeling. It was as if she had suddenly seen an oasis after staying in the desert for a few days. The man beside her was that oasis with a fatal attraction. Chapter 2250. Princess Jinsheng leaned softly on Song Qingshu. Her hands were tightly wrapped around his neck as she unconsciously murmured. Song Qing-shu lowered his head to look at her. He saw that her eyes were watery and her lips had a layer of red luster. She looked very alluring. His heart jumped, and he quickly sealed her acupuncture point. Wang Fei should calm down first. As he spoke, he carried her to the stone platform at the side, hoping to use the cold stone platform to restore a trace of clarity to her. Hugging her, he felt that her entire body was extremely light, and her body was frighteningly hot. Her body was also emitting bursts of sweet fragrance. Even with Song Qing-shu's mental fortitude, he did not dare to delay any longer and hurriedly put her down. The princess of Jincheng continued to stare at him with her watery big eyes. Song Qing-shu then realized that perhaps because of the effects of the drug, she had unbuttoned her clothes. Her fair skin was faintly discernible. Her face was like a crabapple in the spring, and her body was like a lotus that had just bloomed. Even an old man like Su Chongxiao, who had one foot in the grave, couldn't resist her, let alone a young man full of vigor. Fortunately, Song Qingshu's composure was extraordinary, and he had a lot of experience in this area. He barely managed to calm down and hurriedly said, "Princess, don't worry. I will begin to detoxify you now." Princess Jincheng's remaining trace of rationality made her endlessly bashful. However, the more she looked at the handsome and upright young man in front of her, the more she liked him. She was no longer as resistant as before. At least, he was much better than those refugees and Su Chongxiao. Moreover, he was her brother-in-law. It was better to give it to him than to give it to an outsider. Was this what they often said about keeping the goodies within the family? At this moment, her mind kept running wild. All kinds of thoughts came one after another, and they were completely illogical. However, what surprised her was that Song Qing-shu suddenly went out at this critical moment. She was full of doubts. Why didn't he come up? Was she so unattractive? After Song Qing-shu left the small temple, he flew to the top of a tree and looked around. He found the nearest river and returned to the temple. He carried Princess Jincheng and ran. "Where is he taking me?" Princess Jincheng was in a daze. She instinctively grabbed onto him tightly. Could it be that he is taking me to the wilderness? How could he be like this? It's so embarrassing. While she was lost in her thoughts, Song Qing-shu had already brought her to the river. Before she could react, she was thrown into the river. With a splash of cold water, she regained some of her consciousness and stared blankly at the man on the bank. Song Qing-shu said, "Don't worry, princess. The yin-yang harmony powder isn't a powerful medicine. Just wash it with cold water and mix it with some heat-clearing medicine." Only then did Princess Jincheng realize that she had been thinking wrongly all this while. She thought that he was going to... Realizing this, she blushed and subconsciously sank into the water. She was worried that the other party would see the embarrassment on her face. After a while, Song Qing-shu said, "Princess, if you think it's about time, come up quickly. It's very cold now, and it's easy to catch a cold." Xixiao was located in the north, so it was colder than the south. In fact, Princess Jincheng had already felt a little cold. However, when she looked at the man on the bank, she couldn't help but blush and said, "How can I come up now?" At this moment, her clothes were completely soaked and stuck to her skin. It was no different from being naked. With the education she had received since she was young, she naturally didn't dare to appear in front of others. Lonely Study House Song Qing-shu took a package from the side and said, "This is your luggage. I just brought it over." After saying that, she felt a little regretful. If she knew it would be like this, she wouldn't have taken the bag just now. Now, she could be justified. Cough, cough, I've sinned. Thank you. Princess Jincheng couldn't help but admire the other's attentiveness. He was able to consider everything in that short period of time. Can you leave for a while? Okay, I'll go over there first. Call me when you're done." Song Qing-shu couldn't understand why every woman had to do this. Just now, when she was half covered, he didn't see anything. Moreover, she had taken the initiative to throw herself into his arms, but now she was so particular. After he left, there was a rustling sound behind him. After a long time, He heard Princess Jinsheng come up behind him and say, "I'm done." Song Qingshu turned around and saw a classical and quiet beauty standing quietly in front of him. Her cheeks were slightly red, and her skin was still emitting traces of moisture. She was truly a hibiscus out of clear water. "Wang Fei is really beautiful," Song Qingshu sincerely praised. "Thank you." Princess Jinsheng was used to all kinds of praise in her life. But for some reason, when she heard his praise this time, she felt a thread of shyness. "You keep calling me Wang Fei. You're treating me like an outsider. We are considered family. You should call me Jiejie." Song Qingshu had a depressed expression. "You might not be older than me. How can you call me older sister?" Princess Jinsheng said with annoyance, "You are my brother-in-law. Even if you are older than me, according to the law, you should call me older sister." "Achoo, did you catch a cold?" Song Qingshu changed the topic. Princess Jinsheng nodded. "I might have been soaking in there for too long." Song Qingshu said, "I see that there is still moisture on your body. You probably didn't dry yourself when you just came up. In addition, the weather is cold. Sit down first. I will help you expel the cold energy out and at the same time, help you expel the remaining poison." While the yin-yang harmony powder was not an overbearing medicine, just relying on clear water was not enough. In theory, it was necessary to take some cathartic medicine to completely detoxify the poison. However, such medicine could not be found in the wilderness. Also, it would be inelegant. Princess Jinsheng might not be willing. Princess Jinsheng originally wanted to be polite, but when she heard that the remaining poison had not been purged, she immediately paled. She did feel a faint ball of fire in her lower abdomen. While it was not as violent as before, the feeling was similar. Song Qingshu helped her to sit cross-legged and then used the power of the one-yang finger to press against the major acupuncture point on her back. He sent a steady stream of inner power into her body. Feeling the abnormality of her body, Song Qingshu comforted. "This is a normal reaction. Princess, do not take it to heart." Princess Jinsheng suddenly turned around. Her large eyes silently looked at the handsome and determined face of the man behind her. Chapter 22:51. "I don't know why, but I suddenly want to kiss you." Even though her expression was a bit shy, there was an inexplicable bravery in the depths of Princess Jinsheng's eyes. While she looked like a quiet lady on the outside, she had been trapped in a cage like a canary for too long and had been suppressed for too long. In reality, a desire for freedom had long been ignited in the depths of her heart. Her curiosity towards new things was much bolder than what her appearance showed. "Wang Fei, you make me feel very uncomfortable." Song Qingshu sighed softly. "Why do you feel uncomfortable? Am I not attractive in your eyes at all?" Princess Jinsheng's cheeks were red as she stared at him with watery eyes. "That's not it. Wang Fei is noble and beautiful. You are attractive to any man. That's why I feel uncomfortable." Song Qingshu examined the woman in front of him. Her skin was snow white, her breasts high, and her waist thin. She had the elegance and grace of a Jiangnan lady and the charm and beauty of a mature woman. Adding on her status as a Wang Fei, she had a noble charm. "Then why do you endure?" Princess Jinsheng gently bit her lip. Her voice trembled slightly. It was clear that she was not as calm as she appeared on the surface. Song Qingshu was not an impulsive man. Previously, he disdained to take advantage of her when she was in danger and could calmly treat her. But now that the beauty took the initiative, he no longer had any reason to refuse. He reached out and gently hooked her chin. He couldn't help but sigh at the smoothness and tenderness of her skin. But he still asked solemnly, "Has Wang Fei thought it through?" What responded to him was a pair of warm and soft lips. The other's whisper came into his ear, "Don't tell my two younger sisters what happened today." Song Qingshu's words were like thunder that ignited the fire in the ground, and he pulled her delicate body into his arms after an unknown amount of time. Song Qingshu said emotionally, "If I knew this would happen, I would not have wasted so much effort. I would have just cured you like this." Princess Jinsheng's body was as soft as cotton. She barely raised her strength to reply. "That was different. If you had been rude to me at the start, I would have killed myself on the spot." Then why were you willing in the end? Song Qingshu's smile was slightly playful. Princess Jinsheng pouted coquettishly. I don't know. I just suddenly agreed. Seeing the other party smile, she couldn't help but feel extremely embarrassed. You definitely know that I'm a joke. Song Qingshu gently held her in his arms. No, I'm just worried that you'll regret it. Just now, I was happier than everything else in my life combined. How could I regret it? Although Princess Jinsheng was beautiful, her face had always carried a trace of sadness from living alone in a foreign country. But now, her face was as beautiful as a peach blossom. Her whole person exuded a happy expression. Originally, she thought that after today, they would all be strangers, so naturally, she would be a lot bolder. However, after experiencing what just happened, she suddenly felt a little reluctant to part with him so soon. 678-inch, what do you plan to do next? Song Qingshu asked. Princess Jinsheng originally planned to say that she would hide her identity and live a carefree life. But when she thought of what happened during this period of time, especially what happened today, she became a little afraid. Of course, she didn't say that she wanted Song Qingshu to take responsibility. They were both mature men and women and could distinguish the importance of the matter. She had long abandoned some childish fantasies that were inappropriate for the time being. With the status of the two of them, there was no possibility. Furthermore, her two younger sisters were in the middle. Song Qingshu hesitated for a moment before saying, Wang Fei, you grew up in the palace. Later, you became the Tubo Wang Fei. You have people serving you everywhere you go and have never seen the dangers of society. Now, there is chaos and war everywhere. People like that just now are everywhere. You're a woman living alone, and you're so beautiful. I'm afraid. Princess Jinsheng smiled sadly. If it was before today, I would have scoffed at what you said. But now, I understand that to gain something is bound to lose something. There's no such thing as absolute freedom. Hearing the meaning in her words, Song Qingshu asked, You're not going to live alone outside? Princess Jinsheng shook her head. No, compared to falling into the hands of those refugees and living a life worse than death, I'd rather return to Tubo. Song Qingshu frowned. Why don't you return to the Song Kingdom? Princess Jinsheng smiled bitterly. What identity should I return with? If I return as an ordinary person and want to live a stable life, I will definitely have to trouble Yingluo and the others. There are no walls in the world that don't have ears. Once my identity is exposed with the prevailing etiquette of the Song Kingdom, even if I'm a princess, I will probably be reviled by thousands of people. It will also easily cause a war between the two countries. I also don't want to become a sinner of the country. It's just that. Princess Jinsheng suddenly frowned slightly. Her expression was a little conflicted. After returning to Tubo, that Prince Zongzan has been coveting me. It's fine if old Zan is alive. Zongzan still has some scruples. But once old Zan is dead, Zongzan will definitely be rude to me. That's easy. Song Qingshu laughed. According to the reliable news I received, old Zan is only seriously ill. But with the monks of the Tantric sect prolonging his life, he won't die for a while. Now, not only did he have the Golden Snake Camp and other Jianghu intelligence organizations, but he also controlled the intelligence networks of various major countries. Naturally, he knew the situation in Tubo better than others. Of course, that Zongzan is not a good person. You have to guard against him. Song Qingshu took out a porcelain bottle from his bosom. This is a special enchanting smoke from the western region. Just a little bit can confuse a person's mind and make him immerse in his fantasy. If Zongzan wants to be rude to you, you can use this enchanting smoke. He will mistakenly think that he has gotten what he wanted. As long as you are careful, you can easily muddle through. This medicine was used by Toshkis back then. With her amazing beauty, she was able to live alone with the identity of Lady Peach Blossom in a land of tigers and wolves like the Jin Kingdom. She relied on this medicine to deal with those princes and emperors. Is there really such a magical medicine? Princess Jinsheng held it in her bosom. Her entire mood became joyful. I have been under Zongzan's shadow for the past 2 years. With this, I finally don't have to worry. Song Qing-shu reminded. This medicine has been tested by others in actual combat, but you should find a chance to test it yourself. Otherwise, it will be easy to make a mistake by practicing at the last minute. And I know. Princess Jinsheng carefully put the medicine into her bosom, as if it was the most precious thing in the world. Song Qing-shu thought that since she could carry out the plan of a cicada shedding its carapace alone, she was obviously not as weak as she looked. Since she said that she knew, there should be no problem. Chapter 2252. This can be handled by the Xixia officials. Song Qing-shu thought about it, and felt that there was no better way to handle this than Xixia. Xixia. Princess Jinsheng frowned. Xixia and Pai Luo have been at war for many years, but we don't have any relationship with them. The Song is on bad terms with them. Why would they help me? Song Qing-shu comforted her. Don't worry, I have friends from Xixia. They can help. Princess Jinsheng blinked and couldn't help but look at him. You are really resourceful. You even have friends from Xixia. No wonder you could marry 2 princesses of the Song. She was well aware that such an important matter required the help of the Xixia government, and it was not something that could be pushed by an ordinary official. Song Qing-shu's friend must have a very high status. However, she was a mature woman after all, so she wisely didn't pursue the matter. Princess, you are making fun of me. Song Qing-shu was humble. We are already like this, yet you still call me princess. Princess Jinsheng pulled at her clothes with a hint of resentment in her eyes. Song Qing-shu had a strange expression. Do you really want me to call you sister? Bah! Princess Jinsheng spat. She had just eaten her brother-in-law. How could she let him call her that again? After fooling around for a while, Song Qing-shu stood up and said, Let's go back to Xingqing Prefecture first. Okay, I will listen to you. Princess Jinsheng nodded and was as obedient as a young wife. Previously, Song Qing-shu rode a horse when he left Xingqing Prefecture. Now that Princess Jinsheng was so tired that she couldn't walk, she shared a horse with him. She wasn't heavy to begin with, so carrying an extra person didn't affect the horse. Hugging her soft body, coupled with the recent breakthrough in their relationship, the two of them could be said to be very sweet along the way. The Princess of Jinsheng couldn't wait for the horse to slow down, but there was an end to the road. In the end, they still arrived at Xingqing Prefecture. I'll send you to the elite hall first. I'll inform Ing Luo and the others to come over later. The Western Xia will take good care of you. Song Qing-shu had bought a bamboo hat from the roadside and placed it over her head as he whispered, Are you leaving? Princess Jinsheng's tone was filled with reluctance. Song Qing-shu nodded. My identity is sensitive, so I can't appear here. Oh, by the way, don't tell anyone that I saved you. Seeing his solemn expression, Princess Jinsheng didn't say anything and nodded. Don't worry, I will always protect you in the dark. Noticing that she looked a little anxious, Song Qing-shu quickly comforted her. Thank you. Princess Jinsheng heaved a sigh of relief. After that, she was settled in the Western Xia's Class 1 hall. When the people from Class 1 hall learned of her identity, they did not dare to be careless. They quickly notified Yelu Nancian and also sent someone to notify the yellow-clothed woman from the Southern Song dynasty. Soon, these people came one after another. Princess Jinsheng explained the whole thing according to the story taught by Song Qing-shu. Si Qiluo sent someone to bribe his servant girl. She accidentally discovered the secret and secretly ran out. Because she did not know who to trust, she did not show up. As for why the dead servant girl appeared with her identity, she had no idea. The yellow-clothed woman also told Yelu Nancian about the Dian-Song twin swords they had found out, so Yelu Nancian summoned all the emissaries to discuss this matter. As expected, CC Luo refused to admit to this matter. When the Dian-Song duo swords woke up from the soul transfer technique, they only admitted that they had bribed Huan Bai, but did not admit that it was CC Luo who had instructed them to do so. In addition, the key witness, Huan Bai, was already dead. It could be said that the dead could not tell the truth. In the end, the matter could only end with the execution of the Dian-Song duo swords. No matter which force it was, they were all well aware of this. Moreover, Even if the evidence was irrefutable, what could they do about it? He had tens of thousands of valiant warriors under his command, dominating Qing Tang. Would Xixia dare to kill him for the sake of Tubo? Fresh. Only the yellow-clothed woman was indignant about this. Song Qingshu and Princess Jinsheng were very satisfied. After all, their primary purpose was not to deal with Cici Luo, but to restore her innocence so that she could appear in front of the people again. Next, Xixia sent people to escort Princess Jinsheng to chase after the Tubo troops. The yellow-clothed woman was worried, so she volunteered to send her off. Because it was already late, they decided to rest for the night and set off the next day. Princess Jinsheng was brought back to the Southern Song guest house by the yellow-clothed woman. Because she was originally a Southern Song princess, the Xixia people did not stop her. Sister, didn't you decide to leave? Why did you change your mind and come back? After returning to the Southern Song guest house, the yellow-clothed woman finally found the opportunity to ask the question in her heart. I encountered something on the way. Princess Jinsheng sighed faintly and roughly told her what happened before. Fortunately, I was saved by a hero, so I was able to escape. Now I know that I thought of things too simply in the past. This world is too dangerous. I've been protected since I was young. Now that I'm facing this alone, I'm afraid I won't have a good ending. Hero, what's the name of the hero who saved you? The yellow-clothed woman keenly grasped one piece of information. I don't know his name. He left after saving me. Princess Jinsheng remembered Song Qingshu's request and did not reveal his identity. What does he look like? What's special about him? Or what kind of martial arts he uses? The yellow-clothed woman had been in Jianghu for many years. She thought that as long as she had some information, she should be able to deduce his identity. What's special about him? Princess Jinsheng's cheeks suddenly blushed. She wondered if being very strong counted. However, she did not dare to say this out loud. The feeling he gives me can be described with a poem. The silver saddle shines on the white horse, and he gallops like a shooting star. Seeing her infatuated look, the yellow-clothed woman's expression was extremely strange. However, she did not think too much about it. She only thought that her sister was saved by that person at a critical moment, so she could not help but beautify that person in her heart. That's right, Ing Luo, do you know Song Qingshu? Princess Jinsheng suddenly asked. The yellow-clothed woman's heart jumped. Why are you suddenly asking about him? Princess Jinsheng's expression was calm. Isn't he Yuan and Huer's son-in-law? I'm a little curious. What kind of man would make the great Song unexpectedly marry two princesses to him? The yellow-clothed woman gritted her teeth. That person is a lecherous playboy. At the same time, he is very despicable and shameless. Princess Jinsheng jumped in fright. It was very hard to connect these words with that elegant young master. However, she was experienced and quickly reacted. Ing Luo, were you also bullied by him? What do you mean by also? The yellow-clothed woman's face reddened, and she hurriedly explained. Sister, what are you thinking about? How could I be bullied by that bastard? When she said this, she did not have much confidence. Is that so? A trace of a smile appeared on Princess Jinsheng's face. Then tell me how he is despicable and shameless. He is despicable and shameless in every way, the yellow-clothed woman said angrily. However, when she noticed the other's teasing gaze, she could not help but be embarrassed. Sister, you're also making fun of me. Tell me about your story. Maybe I can give you some advice. Princess Jinsheng pulled her hand and sat down on the bed. The yellow-clothed woman hesitated and told her the general story of the past. However, this made Princess Jinsheng even more puzzled. I heard you say that you and he clearly had good feelings for each other. Why did you suddenly treat him like that after the trip to Mount Wudong? There are some things that I cannot say. The yellow-clothed woman bit her lips. What happened on Mount Wudong was a serious matter. Princess Jinsheng was now a Wang Fei of another country. She naturally did not dare to say that Song Qingshu controlled the Song court. In short, that person is despicable and shameless. Chapter 2253. The yellow-robed girl was confused and answered instinctively. I've been with him many times. It's not as exaggerated as you make it out to be. You've been together many times? It was Princess Jinsheng's turn to be shocked. Yes. The yellow-robed girl nodded matter-of-factly. We fought together for a long time. Noticing the other's innocent expression, Princess Jinsheng realized she had misunderstood and blushed. In any case, you will only know how good he is after you get to know him. The man's words stunned the yellow-robed woman. She thought to herself, could it be that my relationship with that person isn't deep enough? However, she immediately reacted. It was that person with the surname Song who did something wrong to the great Song imperial family. Why did she have to reflect? Princess Jinsheng ordered a maid to prepare hot water. The two sisters chatted as they bathed. Ingluo, your figure is so good. Princess Jinsheng looked at the well-proportioned and perfect figure in front of her and sighed. Even though she was young, which girl did not miss the vitality of youth? The yellow-robed girl blushed. Sister, you are teasing me on purpose. Your figure is clearly better than mine. Noticing the other's gaze, Princess Jinsheng smiled. Your figure is not just in this area. Furthermore, you'll have a lot of room to develop after you get married. The yellow-robed girl sighed. I don't plan on getting married. What? Is there no one you like? Princess Jinsheng swam over and gently pinched her. That's right. With younger sister's heavenly beauty, how could an ordinary person like you be attracted to her? Sister, don't tease me. It tickles, the yellow-robed girl giggled. But that Song Qingshu isn't an ordinary person. Have you never considered marrying him? Princess Jinsheng intentionally or unintentionally brought back the topic of conversation. Sister, why are you mentioning that person again? How can I marry him? Disregarding everything else. He is already married Hu Er and Yuan Yuan. If I get involved, the three princesses' official affairs. Great Song will become a laughing stock, the yellow-robed girl said. How do you know that it won't be a good story in the end? Furthermore, you have revealed your identity as the young mistress of the Yang clan. I don't think you have any intention of restoring your identity. How would outsiders know? Princess Jinsheng said with a smile. The yellow-clothed woman's heart moved. Indeed, she did not covet the empty title of princess, and in the future, she would not have to bear the eyes of the world. However, when she thought of how many beauties he had by his side, with her temperament, she was not willing to get involved. Moreover, this time he had secretly taken control of the court, and she did not know what he was planning. She originally didn't want to mention Song Qingshu's matter again, but she couldn't resist Princess Jinsheng's questions every few days, so she could only answer them one by one. Unknowingly, her past memories were evoked, and her expression became much more relaxed. Because of the conversation, the time taken to bathe was much longer than usual. Seeing that it was already late at night, and considering that they still had to travel tomorrow, the yellow-clothed woman got up and left after putting on her clothes. Princess Jinsheng chased all the maids out and got out of the bathtub. She dried her body, but she did not put on her clothes immediately. Looking at her snow-white and beautiful body in the bronze mirror, she thought of the fact that she would be returning to Tubo tomorrow. She could not help but sigh faintly. I have to return to those lonely days again. At that time, her young and beautiful body would slowly age like this year. The night is long, and there is no mood to sleep. Is the princess the same? Suddenly, a man's voice sounded behind her. Princess Jinsheng was shocked and hurriedly pulled her clothes to cover her body. One must know that she was not wearing clothes at the moment. Chidian Chinese, just as she was about to shout for help, she saw the appearance of the man sitting by the window clearly. Her cry of surprise immediately turned into joy. Did I scare you? Song Qingshu said apologetically. Princess Jinsheng threw herself into his arms with a wisp of fragrance and hugged him tightly. I thought I would never see you again. Song Qingshu gently stroked her slightly wet hair. You are leaving tomorrow. No matter what, I have to come and say goodbye to you. In fact, he lived in the Southern Song Embassy. It was very convenient for him to come over, but naturally, he could not appear as Jia Baoyu. Thank you. An intoxicating blush appeared on Princess Jinsheng's white cheeks. I will also come to Tubo to see you in the future. Song Qing-shu embraced her again. Really, Princess Jinsheng was pleasantly surprised. At the same time, she revealed an expression of disbelief. One must know that Tubo was simply a barren land for people in Jiangnan. Moreover, the journey was difficult. She originally thought that this separation would be eternal. Of course it is true. Song Qing-shu did not lie. In his memory, in history, the Mongols would borrow the road from Tubo and detour to Dali to attack the southern Song. In order to prepare for a rainy day, he was afraid that he had to go to Tubo in advance. Moreover, he had more and more doubts about the joyous Diana and wanted to ask Master Lotus of the Ningma Temple. Song Qing-shu responded with a passionate kiss. Song Qing-shu thought to himself, I'm really here to say goodbye. I'm not thinking of anything else. However, Princess Jinsheng's body was frighteningly hot. Perhaps it was because she thought that they would be parting tomorrow and did not know when they would meet again. She became especially proactive. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. The yellow-shirt girl's voice came over. Sister, I think I heard your exclamation just now. Are you okay? Her skills were profound. Even though Princess Jinsheng swallowed her exclamation, she still sensed that something was wrong. Because these were troubled times, she did not dare to be careless. I am fine. Thank you, Yingluo. Quickly go back and rest. Princess Jinsheng's face was frighteningly red. She thought that if the yellow-shirt girl came in and saw her, how could she face others? Noticing that her voice was trembling, the yellow-shirt girl frowned slightly. She thought that she was being held hostage. She hurriedly stretched out her chi to check, but found that she was alone in the room. Only then did she feel relieved and said, Well, rest early. After the yellow-shirt girl left, Princess Jinsheng patted her chest and said, I was scared to death just now. Fortunately, I hid it from her. Song Qing-shu smiled and did not speak. The yellow-shirt girl was really meticulous. If he had not been integrated with nature, he would have been discovered by her chi. Just as he was feeling lucky, a warm body gently wrapped around him. He did not have the time to think. He casually pulled down the curtain beside the bed, and the whole room seemed to gently sway. The next day, because the incident with the Tubo princess had been resolved, the suspended competition resumed again. Many of the audience thought that since the competition had reached this stage, all the contestants should be masters. Some people who wanted to fish in troubled waters should not be able to show off this time. However, the reality once again surprised them. The yellow-shirt girl had escorted Princess Jinsheng to chase after the Tubo envoy and did not show up. She asked Xue Baochai to replace her and admit defeat. Jia Baoyu once again advanced effortlessly. Seeing this result, everyone seemed to be numb. They did not even want to complain. In any case, the heavens will punish the bastard. Soon, their attention was focused on the next match, Xiaofeng against Zhuang Juxian. Chapter 2254. Xiaofeng, you bastard. I'll make you pay with your blood today. Zhuang Juxian's eyes turned red when he saw the tall and sturdy figure in front of him. Xiaofeng was confused. He stepped forward and said, Every time you see me, you say you have a blood feud with me. May I ask what it is? His figure was tall, and his every movement had an inexplicable aura. Zhuang Juxian had once witnessed the scene of him killing everyone in a virtuous gathering manner, and it could be said to be a huge shadow in his heart. Seeing him approaching, he could not help but feel fear in his heart. His mouth mumbled something, but for a moment he could not say anything. Humph! Seeing that the new Grandmaster of the Beggar Sect was so cowardly, the people around immediately booed. The members of the Beggar Sect were even more embarrassed. Many of them refused to accept Zhuang Juxian and still missed the old Grandmaster, Xiaofeng. They all looked at him eagerly. You chitin bastard! To hide your identity, you killed all the heroes of the Central Plains. Our leader naturally has a blood feud with you. Seeing Zhuang Juxian's cowardice, Quan Guanqing quickly helped. Xiaofeng was furious. Quan Guanqing, you need to spread lies. What did I kill those people? Duanyu was very confused. Didn't his father write a letter to the beggar sect about by Shi Jing's death? The other victims must have done the same. Why are they still blaming Big Brother? Seeing Xiao Feng glaring at him like an angry lion, Quan Guanqing was worried that Xiao Feng would rush down and kill him. If that happened, no one would be able to stop him. He said hurriedly, "What? You want to kill me in front of so many people? Leader Zhuang, don't talk nonsense with him. Clean up for the Central Plains." Okay. Zhuang Juxian had recovered at this moment, and his entire body was like a cannonball as he charged towards Xiao Feng. His left hand chopped out in the air, while his right palm swiftly chopped out. The force of his left palm struck out first, and the force of his right palm struck out first. The two forces crisscrossed as they moved forward, and it was extremely strange. Xiao Feng had fought with him last time. He knew that Zhuang Juxian's internal energy was very deep. His internal energy was mixed with the ice worm's cold poison. It was very difficult to deal with him. But Xiao Feng was also a strong opponent. Seeing Zhuang Juxian attack directly, he laughed and said, "Good." While he was speaking, he also activated the 18 Dragon Subduing Palms, clashing head-on with his opponent's palms. The two powerful inner energies collided, causing the entire arena to shake. Su Liuwu, who was watching the battle from the side, was secretly shocked. Everyone in the martial arts world of the Central Plains knows of North Xiao Peak and South Moro. North Xiao Peak truly lives up to his reputation. Then how terrifying is Song Qing-shu, whose reputation has been above us all these years? On the Southern Song Dynasty's side, Xue Baochai couldn't help but frown as she looked at the situation on the stage. I see that King Zhao's body trembles slightly after every palm strike. Could it be that this Zhuang Juxian's internal energy is actually so high that even the famous Xiao Feng isn't his match? Song Qing-shu casually replied, "The ice silkworm's cold poison in Zhuang Juxian's body has been cultivated by the Shinzu scripture's internal energy. Good and evil are complemented by water and fire. It has already become one of the most powerful internal energy in the world. Of course, in terms of pure internal energy, Xiao Feng is not weaker than Zhuang Juxian, but Zhuang Juxian's internal energy is mixed with first-class cold poison, so Xiao Feng is somewhat at a disadvantage." After he finished speaking, he added with a desire to live, "I've heard Sister Yang mention it before. So that's how it is." Hearing that it was the yellow-robed woman who said it, Xue Baochai didn't doubt it. At this moment, Song Qing-shu's thoughts were scattered. He thought about how he also had the secret manual of the Shinzu scripture. He once taught it to his female friends, especially when he taught it to Chen Yuan. When he thought of that lively and fragrant scene, he felt his mouth go dry. At this moment, there was already a change on the stage. Xiao Feng, after all, had incomparably rich combat experience. He immediately fiercely sent out several palm strikes. Taking advantage of the moment when Zhuang Juxian raised his palm to block with all his strength, he suddenly swept his right leg horizontally. Zhuang Juxian's cultivation was the ice silkworm's cold poison and the Shinzu scripture's internal energy. His martial arts were all learned from Azi, so it was extremely sloppy and ordinary. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain on his leg. With a kala sound, both of his calf bones broke at the same time. He immediately fell to the ground and screamed. In a loud and clear voice, Xiao Feng said, "The beggar clan has always prioritized benevolence and chivalry. You are the clan leader, yet your attack is incomparably vicious. You have brought disgrace to the beggar clan's several hundred years of chivalry and good reputation." The crowd of heroes exclaimed in surprise. It turned out that when Zhuang Juxian fell to the ground, the veil on his face had fallen to one side. The spectators saw that the beggar clan's clan leader's face was concave and protruding, one part red, the other black, full of wounds and scars. His facial features were rotting. He looked extremely ugly and terrifying. Xiao Feng was originally prepared to end his life to rid the Wulin world of evil. But looking at his appearance, he could not help but be stunned. Hearing the surrounding people's discussion and their expressions of disdain and disgust, Zhuang Juxian's eyes were filled with tears. In a loud voice he said, "Dog thief, just kill me, just like how you kill my father and uncle at the Juxian Manor." Juxian Manor, Zhuang Juxian. Xiao Feng finally reacted. "You're a Yutanji?" Yutanji raised his head and said, "That's right." Xiao Feng let out a long sigh. "Even though I did not kill your father and uncle, it can be said that they died because of me. Why should I harm their descendants? You may leave." After saying this, he waved his hand and walked out of the drill ground dejectedly. At this moment, he suddenly thought of all the things that had happened at the Jushin Manor. Only when he thought of Azu did a trace of warmth rise in his heart. The winner of the second match was decided. Yutanji was also carried away by Quan Guanqing's men for treatment. The third match was about to begin. Su Yiwu versus Chun Jialuo. Chun Jialuo had been disappointed in the Central Plains and left for the west. Fortunately, he was taken in by the Mu Zhuoluan tribe and had always wanted to repay this kindness. Moreover, he had fallen in love at first sight with Hua Qingtong's younger sister, Princess Fragrance. He hoped to make a great contribution to the Mu Zhuoluan tribe. If it had been any other opponent, with their legs broken, he might not have bothered to take advantage of them. However, Su Yiwu was a great enemy of the Mu Zhuoluan tribe. Moreover, he had a gun in his hand. He did not have such concerns. After the match began, Chun Jialuo was wary of the power of the gun and kept moving. Even though the gun was powerful, its weakness was also very obvious. It cannot be fired continuously. The time needed to reload after firing was enough for an expert to attack many times. Therefore, as long as he dodged the first shot, he would be in an invincible position. Bang! Su Yiwu fired. Chun Jialuo hurriedly dodged to the side. Even so, he was almost hit. He thought to himself that it was difficult to defend against a martial arts expert shot, be it from the angle or the timing. The power was much greater than a normal person's shot. However, the opponent's shot did not hit. It was destined that this victory would belong to him. Chun Jialuo quickly charged at the opponent. However, he was also somewhat wary of Su Yiwu's inner strength. He planned to make use of his inconvenience. Just as he appeared at the side of the wheelchair, Su Yiwu's left hand suddenly raised. Looking at the black muzzle, Chun Jialuo was instantly dumbfounded. Why was there another gun? At this moment, he also understood that the opponent had purposely fired the first shot to numb him. Otherwise, even if he had two guns, he would not have been hit so easily. Bang! Chapter 2255. Big Brother Chun. Hua Qingtong and the others hurried over to check on him. Su Yiwu took the opportunity to retreat to the side, a hint of mockery on his face. "Don't worry, I won't die." Chun Jialuo opened his eyes weakly. He had managed to avoid being hit in his vitals in the nick of time, but he was still heavily injured. Hua Qingtong asked her companion to bandage Chun Jialuo's wounds as she looked back at Su Yiwu angrily. "You've already gone too far by using firearms, and now you're using such a despicable trick to injure people." Su Yiwu sneered. "Miss Wu also came from the battlefield. Don't you think these words are ridiculous?" Hua Qingtong bit her lip. On the battlefield, one could do anything. Strictly speaking, there was nothing wrong with Su Yiwu's actions. "Fine, we'll settle this with His Highness sooner or later." Su Yiwu laughed loudly. "I've heard too many meaningless threats like this over the years. In the end, didn't they all crawl under our Mongolian cavalry and beg for mercy?" The people of the Luan tribe turned pale, but there was nothing they could do. Western Xia was worried that the two sides would clash, so they quickly sent people to mediate and announce the start of the fourth match. The fourth match was between Su Zhu of Shaolin Temple and Wang Baobao of Riyang Palace. Song Qing-shu was not sure what would happen if the two of them fought. Although Xu Zhu's martial arts were strong, Wang Baobao seemed to have cheated as well. Coupled with Wang Baobao's killing intent, it was hard to say who would win. However, what surprised him was that Wang Baobao did not appear after Su Zhu went on stage. Only then did he realize that Wang Baobao's seat was empty. Oh, where did he go? Everyone had the same question in their hearts. Because of Wang Baobao's absence, Su Zhu directly advanced to the next round. The audience, who had been waiting to see a fierce battle, was very disappointed. Although Wang Baobao was arrogant, his domineering aura attracted many people. Coupled with his tall and handsome appearance, Everyone wanted him to win. Now that he was gone, other than Xiao Feng, who could barely get by, there was a cripple who liked to use dirty tricks, an ugly monk, and the most shameless Jiao Baoyu. They actually let this kind of trash enter the top four. The surrounding people kept pointing at Song Qing-shu. This caused Song Qing-shu to be dumbfounded. He didn't expect everyone to have such a strong opinion of him. After the competition ended, Song Qing-shu followed Xue Baochai back to the hostel to show his face. When night fell, he used tiredness as an excuse and closed the door early to sleep. Afterwards, he quietly slipped out. In any case, with his lightness skill, he wouldn't even be able to detect the slightest hint of red in the central plains, so naturally he wouldn't reveal any flaws. After leaving the guest house, he directly changed his appearance and entered the imperial palace. Knowing that he had arrived, Li Qinglu threw herself into his arms with a wisp of fragrance. "You bad guy, you haven't come to see me for so long." Li Qinglu wrinkled her nose in dissatisfaction. Song Qing-shu was stunned. "I think it's only been a few days. He's living a carefree and happy life outside. How would he remember us?" A cold voice sounded. It turned out that Mu Wanqing was also standing not far away. "How can I be as carefree and happy as I am? I'm always thinking about you guys. Didn't I come to find you as soon as I have time?" Song Qing-shu felt guilty, thinking that he was becoming more and more shameless. Reading Mu Wanqing sneered. "Now your tone of speech is becoming more and more like that bastard of a father of mine." Knowing that she was referring to Duan Zhengchun, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. He hurriedly used his means to coax her. Li Qinglu knew that Mu Wanqing was famous for being tough on the outside, but soft-hearted on the inside. Seeing that she was about to surrender, she hurriedly said, "Sister Mu, don't be fooled by him. Yesterday, the Tufan princess stayed in the southern Song hostel. He was most likely having fun there last night." Song Qing-shu's old face heated up. The princess of Jinsheng looked gentle and virtuous on the outside, but she was extremely passionate and unrestrained in her bones. Last night, she really let him enjoy all the gentleness he could muster. However, at this moment, of course, he couldn't admit it. "There's nothing going on between us. Don't think too much." "Nothing going on?" Li Qinglu didn't buy it. "I don't know who sent her back to Class 1 Hall. I noticed that she clearly looked miserable before, but in the end, when you sent her back, her eyes were full of spring and her face was full of peach blossoms." Song Qing-shu felt a headache and hurriedly changed the topic. "By the way, why did the group of people in Tianbao suddenly disappear today?" Mu Wanqing rolled her eyes at him. Obviously, she knew what he was thinking, but she still answered, "According to our investigation, he seemed to have received a letter earlier, and then his expression changed greatly. He left in a hurry with his people. We couldn't stop him, so we let him go out of the city." His expression changed greatly? Song Qing-shu's heart sank. Could it be that something happened to Zhao Min? For a moment, he couldn't help but worry. "Sister Mu, look at him. He must be thinking of other women again." Li Qinglu snorted discontentedly. Song Qing-shu came back to his senses and picked her up. "You little hussy, if I don't teach you a good lesson today, you won't know what a husband's power is." Being hugged by him, Li Qinglu's body instantly softened. She looked at him with seductive eyes. "You have been obsessed with the Tufan princess for so long. Can you still teach me a lesson?" Song Qing-shu suddenly became angry. He could ignore other things, but how could he admit defeat in this kind of situation? He gave her a slap on her perky buttocks and carried her into the room. Adulterous couple. Mu Wanqing, who was standing to the side, secretly spat. She was much more conservative in this aspect and was not as open-minded as Li Qinglu. Seeing this, she left with a red face. The three sisters had previously established a so-called offensive and defensive alliance, so at this time, they did not go up to fight for Li Qingxu. On the other side, in the Shaolin Temple's guest house, a group of people were discussing enthusiastically. Kongwen said, "I was a little worried about Wang Baobao before. Today, he is not here, so Xuzhu's chances of winning have increased a lot. Yes, even if Su Liwu was not injured, he would not be a match for Xuzhu, let alone now that his legs are broken. Another senior monk of the Kong generation nodded and said, "However, we cannot be careless. The power of Su Liu's gun is amazing. If we are not careful and are shot, I am afraid that even the Vajra body may not be able to block it." A senior monk of the Xian generation analyzed. Yes, Bai Yuhuan's martial arts are clearly unfathomable, but she was seriously injured by him with one shot. Today, Chun Jialua also almost lost his life. "Xuzhu, you must be careful tomorrow." A senior monk of the Fong generation reminded him. Xuzhu put his palms together. "Martial granduncles, please rest assured. Although Su Liu's gun is powerful, as long as we are prepared in advance, it is not difficult to dodge it. Moreover, with the lesson from Benefactor Chen today, I will not be careless at all." At this moment, a long laugh came from the courtyard. "Ha ha ha ha! Senior monks, are you all thinking about how to deal with me?" Xuzhu and the others were shocked and hurried out to investigate. They saw Su Liu sitting in a wheelchair with many Mongolian warriors and Japanese experts standing behind him. Chapter 2256. However, Colin was not too worried. Compared to Goryeo and Horazm, they had many more masters on their side. In addition, Su Liu had suffered some losses recently. If they really fought, Shaolin would not be afraid at all. The only trouble was the two Dong-ing masters, Miyamoto Musashi and Sasaki Kojiro. He had seen them fight in the joust for espouse before. Both of their martial arts were quite good, and their ninjutsu was extremely strange. If they helped Su Liu, it would add a lot of variables. Seeing that the monks were at daggers drawn, Su Liu laughed. "Masters, don't be so nervous. Today, I'm not here to fight. I have something to talk to you about." "What does your highness want to talk about?" Kongwen stood up. He was the most senior here, so naturally, he was in charge. Su Liu looked around and said lightly, "What I want to talk about is very important. There are so many people here. Is it appropriate?" Kongwen frowned. A few brothers next to him reminded him in a low voice, "Be careful." Su Liu laughed. "I've heard that Shaolin is the leading mountain in the martial arts world. Your 72 ultimate skills are even more famous. Why are you afraid of me, a man with injured legs?" Hearing him say this, Kongwen could not refuse anymore, so as not to damage Shaolin's prestige. He stepped aside and made way for him. "Your Highness, please come with me to the room to talk." Su Liu pointed at Xuzhu. "This little monk can come with us." The Shaolin monks looked at each other. Although Xuzhu's martial arts were high, his seniority was very low. Normally, he would not participate in high-level meetings in front of outsiders. However, they did not know what Su Liu was planning. With Xuzhu, who was highly skilled in martial arts, watching over them, it was more reassuring. "You guys stay outside as well." Su Liu did not let Miyamoto Musashi and Sasaki Kojiro enter the room. He ordered them and the Mongolian warriors to stay outside. The two nodded. Staying outside and watching the Shaolin masters, they could not help but feel a little itchy. They had long heard of Shaolin and Dong-ing and knew that Shaolin represented the highest level of martial arts in the martial arts world of the Central Plains. The two were crazy about martial arts and had an impulse to give it a try. However, considering that Su Liu was still in the room, they did not dare to act rashly. If something happened to his safety, it would be a big problem. "May I know what is the matter, Your Highness?" After entering the room, Kongwen could not help but ask. Right now, only he, Xuzhu, and Su Liu were in the room. Su Liu sized up Xuzhu. "Nothing much. I just want this young master to withdraw from the competition tomorrow." "What?" Hearing this, the expressions of the remaining two people changed. Just a moment ago, the people of Shaolin had been celebrating Xuzhu's success. They had a great chance of becoming the champion, so how could they give up now? Before Xuzhu could speak, Kongwen directly refused. "Your Highness must be joking. Now that things have come to this, we can only rely on our own abilities to win. Although your Highness' leg is injured, the two guns in your hands are no less powerful than the dragon saber or the heavenly sword. If you really fight, you might not necessarily lose, so why make such an unreasonable request?" Su Liu shook his finger. "No, This is not a request. You must agree. Shuju was so angry that he laughed. Your Highness is too domineering. Although the Mongolians are strong, they can't control our Shaolin temple. Su Yiwu did not get angry. He just looked at him with a faint smile. Young master, do you have 9 scars on your back and 2 buttocks? Shuju felt a chill run down his spine. How do you know? He had never mentioned the scars to anyone. Moreover, the scars were hidden in such a hidden place. Perhaps his fellow disciples in Shaolin Temple had accidentally seen the scars on his back, but they would never know that he had scars on his buttocks. The Mongolian Empire attaches great importance to the collection of information. There is nothing in the world that we don't know, Su Liu said proudly. 24 years ago, a beautiful, gentle, and dignified girl was lured by a man with great martial arts skills. They met in the Purple Cloud Cave. Later, he called Granny Qiao to deliver the baby. Kong Wen's expression changed dramatically. As a senior member of Shaolin Temple, he was one of the few people who knew about Shuju's background. Your Highness's action is not honorable. Moreover, no one will believe your empty words. Empty words? I don't know if Granny Qiao can be counted as a witness. Is the cassock wrapped around the baby evidence? Su Liu laughed. Besides, in order to win, we Mongolians will do anything. In our opinion, only the final winner is qualified to leave behind a voice. Shuju was silent. In fact, he had vaguely guessed his background. Although he did not know who his biological father was, he was sure that he was one of the senior monks. Otherwise, he would not have received so much care since he was a child, and he would not have had so many adventures that other disciples of the Su generation could not have. Seeing the ugly expressions on their faces, Su Liu stopped laughing. You two don't have to be sad. In my opinion, even if this young master becomes the emperor's son-in-law of Shixia, it will not be a good thing. On the contrary, it will affect the reputation of Shaolin Temple. As long as you are on good terms with Mongolia and help us unify the world, in the future, Buddhism will be the national religion of Mongolia. Are you serious? Kong Wen was instantly moved. It should be known that everything the Shaolin Temple had done over the years was just to promote its own ideas and win the support of the officials of various countries. For thousands of years, Buddhism and Taoism had been on the rise and fall, and Buddhism had experienced incomparable glory, but also the pain of the 3 martial arts destroying Buddhism. In the past, Emperor Huizong of Song had strongly advocated Taoism, and in addition, Chai Rong had destroyed Buddhism. Buddhism had been looking for an opportunity to revive. Today, among all the countries in the world, only Mongolia was the strongest. If it unified the world in the future and really made Buddhism the national religion, the efforts of those generations would finally bear fruit. Of course it's true. Su Liu was smiling on the surface, but he was sneering inwardly. In any case, Tantra Buddhism was also Buddhism, so he was not lying. Kong Wen's expression changed. After a long time, he nodded and said, "Okay, we promise you." Su Liu smiled with satisfaction. In the future, we will need more help from the senior monks of your temple. After all, we Mongolians value merit the most. Only in this way can we convince other sections. Ba. Kong Wen put his palms together and said, "As long as it doesn't violate the commandments of our temple and the morality of Jianghu, we will naturally be duty-bound." After a private discussion about the relevant details, Su Liu returned to the Mongolian guest house with satisfaction. The Liu brothers were already waiting there respectfully. What's going on with that Jia Baoyu? How could he overcome all difficulties and reach this stage? Su Liu asked in a deep voice. The Liu brothers looked at each other and said hurriedly, "Your Highness, you can rest assured. Jia Baoyu is famous for being ignorant and incompetent. His continuous advancement is purely a coincidence." Coincidence? Once or twice is a coincidence, but so many times, is it really a coincidence? Su Liu said thoughtfully. Chapter 2257. After returning to his room, Song Qingshu fell asleep immediately. Xue Baochai didn't see him the next day, so she knocked on the door and said, "What time is it? Why don't you get up? The competition is about to start." She knocked on the door for a long time, but there was no response. If she didn't know from Zhongyuan Dianhong that he was in the room, she would have already broken in. After a long time, the door was opened. Shui Baochai was shocked when she noticed the dark circles under his eyes and his listless appearance. "What's wrong with you?" Song Qingshu yawned and said, "Maybe I didn't sleep well." Shui Baochai looked suspicious and asked, "Didn't you go back to your room early last night?" "Really?" Song Qingshu smiled embarrassedly and said, "Maybe too many things have happened recently, and I'm not used to the climate. I couldn't sleep last night and only fell asleep very late." He counted with his fingers and realized that he had not stopped sleeping recently. If he didn't have the Joy Zen to protect himself, other strong men would have become dregs. "You are about to compete. How can you be in this state?" Shui Baochai frowned. Shui Pan, who passed by, couldn't help laughing and said, "Sister, you really take him seriously. Today, he is facing the king of the south courtyard of Liao, Xiaofeng. No matter how good he is, he has no chance." Shui Baochai came to her senses and couldn't help but laugh. Yes. I didn't react in time. He has come all the way, so I feel it's a pity to give up." It should be known that she only hoped to appear in the group before. At that time, she would have an explanation when she returned to Linen, so that she would not be a joke. Who expected that he did not know what kind of dogshit luck he stepped on and actually went all the way to the semifinal. Song Qingshu didn't take Shui Pan's words seriously. He knew that Shui Pan didn't have any malicious intentions, and it was just a quarrel between bad friends. That's not necessarily true. What if I can advance? With Xiaofeng's strength, there was really no trick, so he could only show his martial arts. Fortunately, he had foreshadowed the matter on the Island of Heroes, so Shui Baochai and the others wouldn't be so abrupt. "You could defeat Xiaofeng? If you win, I'll pay for you to spend the next year drinking." Shui Pan laughed heartily. Song Qingshu's expression changed. Don't look for me to drink with girls. Are you kidding me? I'm already so busy at home. How could I have a mood to go to a brothel?" Shui Pan still wanted to say something, but his sister had already pulled his ear and dragged him to the side. "It's fine if you go to those filthy places, but why do you have to lead Baoyu astray?" Shui Pan wanted to cry, but no tears came out. "I led him astray? This guy is full of evil tricks. He's much more playful than me." Soon, the group arrived at the drill ground. Although the number of people competing was decreasing, the enthusiasm of the audience was increasing. King Xiao. As soon as Song Qingshu stepped into the drill ground, he heard a tsunami of shouts calling out to Xiaofeng. Apart from asking him to teach him a lesson, the person who came to make up the numbers, the slogan that was shouted the most was actually to beat the shit out of him. Looking over, he saw Du Guming jumping up and down from Peerless City's side. He was probably the one who started this slogan. Shui Baochai tugged on his sleeve. "Admit defeat when you get on the stage. Otherwise, if you really get beaten out, I'm going to ignore you." Song Qingshu was speechless. Xiaofeng is a gentleman. How could he be so heavy-handed? After saying that, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. Did that mean that he was a despicable person for beating the shit out of Du Guming? In the end, Song Qingshu still got on the stage first. He was greeted by a wave of boos, but he didn't care. He continued to stand on the stage calmly. Watching Yilu Nanxian, Li Qinglu, and the others saw this and thought that Song Qingshu's temperament was extraordinary. However, in the eyes of others, they felt that he was a dead pig that didn't fear boiling water. Next, a group of people shouted for Xiaofeng to get on the stage, but they still didn't see him. Everyone looked in the direction of Liao and saw that Liao was also anxiously looking in the direction of the drill ground. Soon, a Liao warrior rushed over and handed him a letter. After reading it, his expression changed several times. In the end, he had no choice but to go on the stage and tell them that Xiaofeng had already left. It turned out that the battle with Yu Tanji yesterday had brought back memories of the virtuous gathering manner. He couldn't help but miss Azu. Moreover, he didn't care about marrying some Xixia princess. There was no point in staying, so he left a farewell letter. Hearing that Xiaofeng had left, the crowd sighed with regret. However, what followed was a surge of anger. How could that ignorant playboy on the stage be lucky enough to advance to the finals? So you're blaming me? Song Qingshu shrugged. He didn't expect that Xiaofeng would leave without saying goodbye. He originally thought that there would be a huge battle today. After all, Li Qinglu had threatened him in every way possible last night, saying that he would definitely compete in a martial arts tournament so that she could gain face. Shameless. Many people were provoked to the point that they couldn't take it anymore. They were so angry that they rushed up the stage to beat him up. After all, in their eyes, anyone here could beat him up. Fortunately, the elites from Class 1 Hall had long since been on guard near the stage, and they blocked those people. Duan Yanqing quickly threw the hateful person off the stage. Damn it, you're the one who causes trouble every single time, and we have to clean up after you. Next, he had to quickly start another battle to divert attention. Congratulations! When Song Qingshu returned to his seat, Xue Baochai's eyes were like crescent moons. Which woman didn't want the person she loved to be more powerful? She didn't care how he won. Thank you. Song Qingshu couldn't help but look at Xue Pan, only to see the latter's dumbfounded expression. You're way too lucky. Why don't I have such luck? Xue Baochai ignored Ling Wan's brother and moved closer to Song Qingshu to ask, Bao Yu, who do you think will win? She didn't know why, but she suddenly felt that Song Qingshu's words were very convincing. Looking at Xuzhu and Su Liuwu, Song Qingshu said in a low voice, if nothing unexpected happens, Xuzhu will win. Even if Su Liuwu holds a spear with both hands, it will be difficult for him to move. Xuzhu's martial arts are too high, and he's also on guard. He won't be like Chun Jialuo and the others. However, things were just that unexpected. After Xuzhu went up the stage, he said, On me, cough. I've thought about it, but I can't think of a way to defeat your Highness Gun, so I admit defeat this time. If he pretended to lose after the fight started, it would be too damaging to Shaolin's reputation. He might as well admit defeat right from the start and leave a reputation for being magnanimous. Another one admits defeat? All the spectators were dumbfounded. They hadn't expected that the two semifinals would end so dramatically. It's no wonder. The gun is so powerful, and anyone who touches it will either die or be seriously injured. This little monk is quite smart. Plus, it's easy to offend the powerful Mongolians. Most of the spectators thought the same. Only a few true experts frowned. They could see that Xuzhu's chances of winning were very high, so why would he admit defeat directly? The Xixiao side also hadn't expected that the competition would end like this, and they were all stunned. In the end, someone in the audience shouted, Since we haven't fought a single match today, why don't we start the finals directly? Yes, kill that shameless guy with one shot. But he's so lucky. What if something happens to his opponent when he goes up the stage? Damn, if he can win, I'll never drink again. Chapter 2258. This isn't fair. The finals are clearly scheduled to be held tomorrow, so why do they have to fight today? Hearing that those people wanted to immediately start fighting, Xue Baochai immediately felt indignant. She naturally knew Jia Baoyu's background. Even if Su Liuwu had a broken leg, she still wouldn't be able to beat him, not to mention that he was holding 2 muskets. If they fought tomorrow, they would at least have a day to think of a countermeasure. Even if they couldn't do anything in the end, they could at least enjoy the joy of entering the finals. If they were beaten down right after they advanced, wouldn't they become the biggest joke in the world? Hearing her words, those people shouted even louder. Today, his opponent didn't even appear, and there's no such thing as exhaustion. Su Liuwu at least said a few words to his opponent. So, in the end, Su Liuwu is still at a disadvantage. That's right. Pretty boy's surname, Jia. Do you only know how to hide behind a woman? These people of the pugilistic world were all incomparably vulgar. In addition, Jia Baoyu clearly didn't have any ability, but he had actually gotten lucky all the way to the finals. How could the people below be convinced? They couldn't wait for him to immediately go on stage and make a fool of himself. That group of people was very excited. Xue Baochai alone couldn't do much, and the voices of opposition were quickly drowned out. At this time, Su Liuwu also spoke, This king doesn't mind starting the finals right now. If his opponent in the finals was Xiao Feng, he definitely wouldn't agree to fight immediately. With an extra day, he could calmly plan a way to deal with Xiao Feng, but his opponent was Jia Baoyu. He didn't care at all. Getting first place earlier would save him a lot of trouble. Everyone's gaze fell on Song Qingshu. This way, all the pressure was on him. Yalu Nanxian also looked at him worriedly. Now that things had reached this point, it wouldn't be easy for her to clean up. Song Qingshu calmly nodded his head. Yalu Nanxian finally came out and said, "Since it's like this, then the finals will be held today. Both sides first prepare yourselves." Shui Baochai's heart was in a mess. She hurriedly pulled on Song Qingshu's sleeve and said, "You have to admit defeat as soon as you go up. Don't try to be brave. You have to know that your opponent's gun is no joke. If someone was touched by the gun, he would be seriously injured, and it would be too late to save him." The Mongolians had always been arrogant, and they wouldn't care about the life of a playboy from the Song dynasty. If something really happened, the Song dynasty wouldn't go against the Mongolians for the son of the rebellious Jia Sherdao. Maybe some people in the court would like to see that happen. "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing." Song Qingshu patted her hand to comfort her. He then turned to Shui Pan and said, "Is it too late to bet now? We can make it in time. The major gambling houses have many people in the drill grounds. They can accept bets on the spot." Shui Pan nodded instinctively. Song Qingshu took out a stack of silver notes and stuffed it into his hand. "Take out all of the money you have." Shui Pan couldn't help but laugh. "You're so smart. You bet on Su Liawu in advance. At least you can earn some medical fees. However, the odds are so low that you won't be able to make much money." Song Qingshu stared at him like he was looking at an idiot. "Don't mess around. Bet all of your money on me." "Bet on you?" Shui Pan's eyes widened. Shui Baochai was even more stunned. "Don't mess around." Shui Baochai was really anxious. She thought it would be great if Sister Yang was here. She could keep stopping him. It's not embarrassing to lose to a Mongolian king. Furthermore, you've already made it to the finals. It's good enough for you to go back to Jiangnan. Don't do anything stupid. Even Shui Pan couldn't help but advise, "Bro, he's holding a gun. If you're barehanded, you can give it a try for the sake of money. But if you're hit by this thing, you'll become a sieve. Don't worry, I have a way to beat him." Song Qingshu's expression was exceptionally calm. As if sensing his emotions, Shui Baochai gradually calmed down. However, for some reason, she suddenly felt that the man in front of her was a little strange. He seemed to know some kung fu of the Isle of Heroes. Could it be that the childhood friend who grew up with her was also a hidden kung fu master? TXT the Liu brothers, who were not far away, also heard their conversation and looked at each other. Liu Shishing couldn't help but whisper, "Why is this kid so confident? Does he really have a trump card? Should we inform His Highness?" LV Sherdao shook his head and said, "How can we inform him in public? What's more, I just assured the prince yesterday that this boy is nothing to worry about. If I say the opposite now, won't I be contradicting myself? What will we become in His Highness's heart? But what if this kid really has a powerful trump card?" LV Shishing was still very worried. LV Sherdao sneered and said, "What kind of trump card can he have? Others may not know his background, but do you think we don't? Even if he has learned some kung fu on the Isle of Heroes, he is still far from being His Highness's match." LV Shishing finally relaxed and said, "Not bad, not bad. His Highness still has 2 guns in his hands. Even if he faces the top kung fu masters of the Jianghu, it won't be a problem." At this moment, Song Qingshu had already stepped onto the arena. Looking at Su Liawu, who was in a wheelchair, he cupped his hands and said, "His Highness, you and I have overcome many difficulties and defeated many top kung fu masters. Finally, we will meet in the finals. We are truly the peerless pair. Next, we will join hands and give the audience a fierce battle. It will be a great story." This time, even Yellow Nanxian and the other people who knew the truth had a strange expression. Su Liawu could barely be considered a peerless pair. After all, he had defeated a few kung fu masters, but how many times had he fought? Su Liawu looked at him as if he was looking at a madman. Clearly, he was ashamed to be called the peerless pair with him. The people in the surroundings who disliked Su Liuwu had already started cursing him, thinking how could there be such a shameless person in this world. Duan Yanqing and the other people from Class 1 Hall were cursing him in their hearts. The order that they had managed to maintain with great difficulty was almost broken by these angry spectators. Song Qingshu cleared his throat and suddenly said, "His Highness, this is a martial arts competition for a spouse. Isn't it a bit against the rules for you to use firearms? This time's competition for a spouse has always been a competition of the participants' overall strength. Being able to obtain a firearm from the Western region is also a part of this prince's strength. If you have one, feel free to use it," Su Liuwu said calmly. "I really don't have a firearm." Song Qingshu sighed. Shuang was the only one who had a firearm. The other firearms from the army were fully loaded and had a close range. How could he possibly bring one with him? Seeing his serious expression, Su Liuwu suddenly laughed. "Of course, if you break your own legs right now, this prince doesn't mind throwing away the firearm and having a fair duel with you." Song Qingshu waved his hand. "I don't have much ability and can't provoke any powerful opponents, so I won't have my legs broken. I don't want to try either." Hearing him mention his scars, Su Liuwu's face twitched. His eyes were filled with killing intent. "Are you ready? If you are, then let's begin. Don't talk so much nonsense." "Wait a moment." Su Liuwu was just about to attack when Song Qingshu hurriedly stopped him. "I'm worried that I might accidentally injure His Highness. His Highness has many soldiers under him. I'm afraid that His Highness will take revenge after he descends." Tisk! Loud boos rang out in the surroundings. Su Liuwu was so angry that he laughed. "If you can really injure me, then you have the ability. Everyone, listen up. If I am injured by this brat later, no one is allowed to pursue this matter. His Highness is indeed righteous." Song Qingshu nodded. He turned around and said to the people from the Southern Song dynasty, "Listen up. If I am injured by His Highness later, you are not allowed to seek revenge on His Highness." The people from the Southern Song dynasty's diplomatic corps all looked at each other. Shui Baochai stood nervously by the side of the arena, ready to go up and save him at any time. "Are you done talking nonsense? If you are, then let's begin." Su Liuwu was not in a hurry to make his move. This time, not only did he want to win, he wanted to win beautifully. He wanted to show off his power in front of the princess of Xixia and all the heroes of the world. Chapter 22:59. What's this thing? Everyone was baffled by the sight of a black bead flying over. It looked like prayer beads, but what sort of hidden weapon was a prayer bead? Even if it was thrown to the ground, it shouldn't matter, right? But Su Liuwu paled and hurriedly turned his wheelchair to the side, his posture unprecedentedly wretched. While everyone was confused, the black bead had already fallen to the ground where he had been standing. With a loud bang, a flame exploded, and a black hole was blasted into the arena. Thunder Fireball. A few of the people present had participated in the lion slaughtering assembly and finally recognized what kind of hidden weapon this was. The disciples of the Amei sect had used this to kill quite a few experts of the Jianghu. Su Liuwu grimaced. It was one thing if others didn't recognize it, but how could he not recognize it? The Thunder Fireball had been invented by the Arabs after gunpowder had been brought to the West. He often fought against the Western kingdoms, so he naturally recognized it. Thus, before anyone could react, he had hurriedly dodged. "Your Highness is truly experienced and knowledgeable." Song Qingshu spoke of his admiration, but his hands did not hesitate. Several more black beads flew at Su Liuwu. As Zhou Zhiruo's man, how could he not make full use of the things of the Amei sect? He had long ago ordered his subordinates to make large-scale replicas of them. These kinds of hidden weapons were not suited to be used on the stage, but since Su Liuwu had used a gun first, he had no more misgivings. This way, he wouldn't even need to expose his martial arts. It was the best of both worlds. As he saw several thunder fireballs flying at him, Su Liuwu knew that it was too late to move his wheelchair. He hastily clapped his hands together and leaped off his stool. His martial arts had always been very high, and even though his legs were injured, he still had his internal energy. His leap was like the cry of a crane reaching the 9 heavens, and his posture was rather elegant. The cheers from the crowd even drowned out the sound of his wheelchair being blown to pieces. Su Liuwu knew that he could not go on like this, so he immediately took out his gun, wanting to shoot him dead before he could attack again. But in the next second, he was stunned because more black pearls appeared in front of him. Now that he was in midair, there was no way he could dodge the attack. The only thing he could do was to curl up into a ball and circulate his inner force while using his hands to block the vital parts of his body. Bang, 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 a series of explosions rang out. Although it was daytime, a series of dazzling fireworks could still be seen in the sky. Following that, a char body fell powerlessly onto the stage. Its hair had long been burnt off, and its body was smoking. The air was filled with a faint smell of meat. Roasted? Everyone was dumbfounded. This was too tragic. The Mongolian warriors under Su Liuwu's command had long since rushed onto the stage, all of them staring at Song Qingshu with bloodshot eyes. Despicable scum! How dare you use hidden weapons to injure others? Xue Baochai also recovered from her shock and hurriedly went up to protect him. Song Qingshu spread out his hands. Everyone heard it just now. Your Highness said that using firearms is not against the rules, and I can use them as I please. He also made an agreement with me that if there are any injuries or deaths during the competition, the other side cannot pursue it. Are you going to go against your master's orders? Those people's expressions flickered. They naturally remembered Su Liuwu's words, but who would have thought that His Highness would lose? In the end, his words had dug a big hole for himself. The winner of the competition has already been decided. Moreover, both sides have made an agreement beforehand. Please do not break the rules. Duan Yanqing and the others received Yelu Nanshin's instructions, and they all went up onto the stage to prevent the two sides from actually fighting. At this time, Su Liuwu, who was lying on the ground, let out a weak groan. Seeing that he was still alive, his subordinates were overjoyed. How could they care about causing trouble for Song Qingshu? They hurriedly carried him away to find someone to treat him. Song Qingshu had long since noticed that Su Liuwu was wearing a golden silk armor. Even Wei Xiaobao was able to get his hands on one. With the wealth of Mongolia, they naturally did not lack such things. Su Liuwu was also one of the most powerful princes in Mongolia, so he naturally had a lot of protective items on his body. That Thunderbolt flame ball was not enough to take his life, but it was unavoidable that his skin and flesh would be torn apart. Even though Yelu Nanxian wanted a laugh in her heart, with her current status, she had no choice but to immediately stop the doctor from treating Su Liuwu's injuries. The crowd fell into chaos. On the stage, Song Qingshu faintly sighed. I already said not to force my hand. Once I make a move, I will either die or be seriously injured. Before, those people all withdrew from the competition. You all thought that I was lucky, but in fact, it was their luck. How shameless! Seeing his expression, the same thought arose in the minds of all the spectators below the stage. However, this time was different from before. No one dared to curse out loud. After all, they had personally witnessed the power of the Thunder Fireball. If they angered him, what would happen if he threw one at them? Even Du Ming, who had cursed the most fiercely, felt extremely fortunate. Compared to Su Liuwu, being beaten until he sh*t didn't seem that big of a deal. The first thing Song Qingshu did when he got off the stage was to find Xue Pan. Did you place your bets just now? Yes, I did. I made a killing. Xue Pan was also beaming. In a moment, I will go to those gambling houses to collect the money. Suddenly, a resentful voice came from his side. Why do you have a Thunder Fireball? Even though there were many people who did not get along with Jia Baoyu, they were all from the Southern Song dynasty. Seeing him win the championship, they were mostly happy. Only the Liu brothers and Qiu Tongfu were not happy. You didn't ask me. Song Qingshu rolled his eyes at them. He had more or less guessed that they had colluded with the Mongols in secret. At this moment, the Liu brothers wanted to cry, but had no tears. Yesterday, they had patted their chests in front of Su Liuwu and said that Jia Baoyu was not capable and was nothing to be afraid of. In the end, after what happened today, the first thing Su Liuwu would do when he recovered would probably be to settle the score with them. This time, they had gone through a lot of hardships to come to Xixia. In the end, they had finally made contact with the Mongols. But in the end, the Mongols had broken off just like that. Moreover, judging from the situation, the Mongols would not tolerate them in the future. It seemed like they had to find another way. They did not know if it was too late to work hard to woo the princess of Xixia. In any case, there was still a written examination after the martial examination. Who knew if the princess of Xixia would prefer those who were talented and romantic? When it came to writing, who were the scholars of the great Song dynasty afraid of? The official of the class 1 hall announced the end of the martial examination. The written examination would be held in the imperial palace the next day. Only those who made it into the group of the martial examination had the right to participate. Someone immediately asked what the written examination was about. Was it a test of poetry or the art of warp and weft? The official of the class 1 hall answered. The questions for the written examination were personally set by the princess. We do not know the specifics, but in general, it is to test the true character of all the young masters. There is no need to make a last-minute effort. Chapter 2260. Song Qingshu recalled the scene in the imperial palace last night. He caressed the girl lying in his arms like a cat and asked her what the topic of the written exam was. Who knew that Li Qinglu would only put her face on his chest with a satisfied expression and wouldn't tell him? When he asked, she would just answer according to her heart. Song Qingshu immediately objected. What if he didn't answer well and someone else took first place in the written exam? Who knew that Li Qinglu would just roll her eyes and say, "In any case, I will be the judge. How can I let someone else take first place?" Song Qingshu thought that this was reasonable and didn't ask any more questions. This feeling of participating in the competition and being a judge is really refreshing. Song Qingshu couldn't help but raise his eyebrows as he thought of this. Is it so happy to be the champion of the martial examination? A girl's teasing voice came from behind. He turned around and saw Wanyan Zhongjia standing next to him. Why wouldn't I be happy if I won? Shui Baochai glared at her with slight hostility. This Jin Kingdom princess was too close to Baoyu. Miss Shui, you are so happy now. Have you thought about what happens if he takes first place in the written exam tomorrow and becomes the prince consort of Xixia? Wanyan Zhongjia snorted when he noticed that the girl was standing very close to Song Qingshu. How is that possible? You don't need to worry about that. Shui Baochai was very familiar with Jia Baoyu. She knew that he was someone who would complain about having a headache whenever he touched the classics. How could he take first place in the written exam? Why not? Wanyan Zhongjia suddenly looked at her with pity in his eyes. Did you think that he would take first place in the martial examination? Hearing his words, Shui Baochai couldn't help but be startled. The joy in her heart suddenly disappeared. At this moment, she didn't know what kind of complicated feelings she had. While she was in a daze, Wanyan Zhongjia moved closer to Song Qingshu and said, I was worried about you. Who knew that you had such a card up your sleeve? I didn't want to use it before. After all, it is against the rules to use it in the martial arts arena. Who knew that Su Liuwu would break the rules first? I am sorry. Song Qingshu couldn't help but sigh. This opponent was really cooperative. Big brother, you're really bad. Wanyan Zhongjia couldn't help but laugh. The Jin Kingdom and the Mongolians were mortal enemies. Seeing Su Liuwu in such a miserable state, she was clearly very happy. Ahem, Shui Baochai had already regained her composure. Seeing how intimate the two were, she couldn't help but feel a little jealous. Baoyu, we should go back. Song Qingshu could only give Wanyan Zhongjia an apologetic look before being dragged back to the guest house by Shui Baochai. Ouyang Feng came to Wanyan Zhongjia's side and couldn't help but say, no matter how many times this boy changes his identity, he always has beautiful women by his side. Wanyan Zhongjia also sighed deeply. Falling in love with an outstanding man is truly a double-edged sword. Ouyang Feng was speechless. How old are you? Why are you pretending to be so profound? After Song Qing-shu and his entourage returned to the guest house, the Southern Song Diplomatic Corps came out to congratulate them. Of course, the Liu brothers and Xiu Tongfu all wore long faces. Shui Pan was the most excited. He said that he wanted to organize a banquet and drink to their heart's content. Because of the continuous incidents in the city, the diplomatic corps was under all kinds of control. The envoy group was under all kinds of control, so the group of young masters had long become indifferent. Hearing this, they all agreed. Shui Baochai didn't want to spoil everyone's fun, so she agreed. Not long after, guests came to visit. The first to arrive were Galdan and the people from the House of Dual Cultivators. They had been enemies with the Mongolians for many years. Today, seeing the insufferably arrogant Su Liuwu in such a miserable state, they were naturally very happy. 9 biscuits, Chinese. Of course, the people from Peerless City didn't come. After all, Du Gumming had been beaten so badly by Jia Baoyu that they couldn't bring themselves to come. The people of the Southern Song dynasty were very welcoming to their arrival. Galdan was fine, but everyone in the Dual Cultivator Mansion was a beauty, especially the Dual Cultivator Princess and the Dual Cultivator Madam. Even their maids were all beautiful. The group of young masters had long been stifled during this period of time, so they all gathered around and asked about their well-being. Even if they couldn't eat swan meat, smelling the swan's fragrance was also good. The Princess of Dual Cultivators had originally come for Song Qing-shu. However, in front of so many people, she couldn't be too obvious. She was worried that her identity would be exposed, so she could only half-heartedly entertain Shui Pan and the others. Next, the people from the Wooden Table Ethics Department and the Ming Dynasty also came. Because Chun Jiaohua had been severely injured by Su Liuwu, Hu Qingtong and the others had suppressed their anger. Today, when they saw that Song Qing-shu had given them a taste of their own medicine, they finally understood. Naturally, they had come to thank this young master who had avenged them. Moreover, he had saved them when they were poisoned. Therefore, they had specially prepared a generous gift when they came. Generous gift? What good things can you people from the bitter cold borderlands have? Lu Shisheng, who was at the side, was already very unhappy and decided to make things difficult for both sides. Therefore, he directly jumped out and opened the gift box. There was a dazzling treasure light, and in the box was a white jade bottle that was 1 foot and 2 inches tall. It was crystal clear and soft, and was incomparably clean. One look, and one could tell that it was an extremely precious treasure. Everyone present quietened down. However, their attention was not on the jade bottle itself, but on the painting of a beauty on the bottle. This beauty had a long braid and a small hat. She was dressed in the attire of a Hui girl, and a short sword hung at her waist. Her beauty was unparalleled, and her radiance was oppressive. Her eyes flowed with intelligence, and her cherry lips moved as if she was about to walk out of the painting. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but be stunned. The girl on the bottle not only had Chun Yuan's peerless beauty, but also Xiao Longnu's otherworldly aura. She was truly a woman who had the fortune of heaven and earth in one body. This should be that Princess Xiangxiangbela. Everyone thought that when they saw Hu Qingtong, they thought that her figure was already rare in the Muzhualuan tribe. Who knew that the person on the bottle was even more beautiful? Could it be that the Muzhualuan tribe really had so many beauties? No wonder the Mongols had always wanted to conquer this tribe. However, they quickly realized that this was just a painting. How could there really be such a beautiful person in the world? As if she had seen through everyone's doubts, Hu Qingtong pursed her lips and smiled. This was painted by the most famous painter of my tribe, Seeing. This pair of jade bottles originally belonged to my younger sister, Kazli. The beauty in the painting is her portrait. Young Master Jia has done a great favor for my tribe, so this jade bottle is a gift to you. The people around him sucked in a sharp breath. It's actually a real person. The third mistress of the Muzhualuan tribe. There really is such a beauty in the world. It turns out that the most beautiful princess, Xiangxiangbela, in the desert was not a lie. Song Qing-shu was stunned and said hurriedly, "Since this is third mistress's favorite item, how can I snatch it away?" Hua Qingtong smiled and said, "My younger sister has always been troubled by not being able to contribute to the tribe. This time, when she found out that I came to contact the heroes from all over the world, she specially passed this bottle to me as a gift. Not only did you save my life, you also taught that dog Su Liu a lesson and helped us vent our anger. Naturally, you deserve it." Seeing the other party's enthusiasm, Song Qingshu had no choice but to accept it. In that case, it would be impolite of me to refuse. Shui Pan, who was at the side, snatched the bottle away. The group of young masters surrounded the beauty on the bottle and commented on it, swallowing their saliva. Compared to Miss Wa's gift, these from my tribe seem a little tacky. Yang Xiao smiled bitterly. The Ming dynasty was located in the west regions and was rich in gemstones. However, no matter how beautiful the gemstones were, how could they compare to the dazzling beauty of Princess Xiangxiang Bela? "Thank you," left emissary Yang. Song Qingshu had a strange expression on his face. He did not expect the Ming dynasty to give him a gift one day. Chapter 2261. In the lion-slaying convention, Zhou Zhiruo and the Amei faction had made a name for themselves, not only because of her Nining Sutra, but also because of the Thunderbolt Fireball. The people of the Ming dynasty had witnessed the power of the Thunderbolt Fireball, so they were impressed. Because of all the things in the past, and the fact that Zhou Zhiruo fell in love with Song Qingshu, the people of the Ming dynasty didn't have a good impression of her. Yang Xiao was shrewd, so he didn't bring it up. However, Zhou Jian was a straightforward person, so he couldn't help but ask. This time, everyone looked at Song Qingshu. Even Shui Baochai's eyes were a little suspicious. She had never known that Baoyu had a Thunderbolt flame ball. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been so worried. Song Qingshu knew that he would be asked, so he explained calmly, "My father knows that my kung fu is weak, and he's afraid that I'll be hurt, so he gave it to me to protect myself. I can't use it unless I'm in danger." Everyone understood. Jia Sherdao was powerful, and the army of the Southern Song dynasty also had firearms. It wasn't hard to get something like the Thunderbolt Fireball. Shui Baochai knew more. Even if Jia Sherdao didn't use his official identity, the Isle of Heroes had many ways to get the Thunderbolt Fireball. "We're preparing for a banquet. If you don't mind, stay and have a drink." As the host of the banquet, Shui Baochai started to make arrangements. Galdan, the Ming dynasty, and the Wooden Table Loom department wanted to take this opportunity to get to know the Southern Song dynasty and discuss the alliance against the Mongols, so they didn't refuse. When he was drinking, he noticed that the princess of two cultivators winked at him, so he followed her out. As he was wondering why she wanted to see him, a fragrant wind rushed into his arms as soon as he went around the corridor. "Song Qingshu, I don't want to leave you." The princess of two cultivators hugged him tightly, as if she would run away if she let go of him. "What's wrong, Zixian?" Feeling the girl's abnormal mood, Song Qingshu gently stroked her hair and asked, "The wushu test is over. I'm afraid we'll have to return to the western region after the theory test tomorrow." There was a hint of sobbing in the princess's voice. Based on her previous judgment, both Galdan and Dugu Ming had little hope of passing the written examination tomorrow. Moreover, the main purpose of Galdan's trip wasn't to find a bride, but to contact various potential anti-Ming forces. Now that he had achieved his goal, he would most likely leave after the written examination tomorrow. Song Qingshu comforted her softly. "Don't worry, I'll go to Peerless City to see you soon." "Really?" The dual cultivator princess widened her eyes in surprise. She had thought that this separation would be eternal. After all, Peerless City was thousands of miles away from the Central Plains. "Of course it's true. I'm not the kind of person who runs away after eating," Song Qingshu said with a smile. Song Lang, what greeted him was a passionate kiss. After a while, Song Qingshu felt that the body of the girl in his arms was getting softer and softer, and his eyes were about to drip water. He couldn't help but be shocked. Who knows when someone will come here? The dual cultivator princess bit her lips, and there was a hint of charm in her eyes. She said softly, "Actually, it's not impossible if we hurry up. The inner force that Song Qing-shu cultivated had an irresistible attraction to the women of the Dual Cultivation Institute. How could the women of the Dual Cultivation Institute not have an indescribable attraction to Song Qing-shu? If it was someone else, Song Qing-shu might have hesitated. After all, his legs had been a little weak for the past 2 days, and he almost couldn't get up this morning. However, the Dual Cultivator Princess was different. Her cultivation technique was the best nourishment for a man, and he didn't need to expend much effort from start to finish. Hilarious. Although this place could barely be considered secluded, it wasn't like no one would pass by. Thinking about the large group of people in the front hall, the two of them could be said to be extremely nervous. After a while, Song Qing-shu's expression suddenly changed because he sensed that someone was nearby. If this matter was leaked, it would be troublesome. He reached to the side and grabbed the other person's neck, planning to subdue her, and then use the soul transfer technique to erase her memory. Unexpectedly, a delicate cry rang out. When they saw the other person's appearance, all 3 of them were stunned. It turned out that the person who had been grabbed by the neck was the Dual Cultivator Princess, Gu Ningxing. Song Qing-shu awkwardly withdrew his hand. He could use force on others, but how could he use force on her? Gu Ningxing had just seen her daughter quietly leave the table and vaguely guessed what was going on. She was worried that the 2 of them would make a mistake, so she followed them to take a look. Who knew that these 2 would be so bold? Mother, Gu Zixian bit her lip tightly, and her entire head was almost lowered to the ground. This kind of situation was really too embarrassing. Gu Ningxing lowered her head to look at the 2 of them, and in an instant, 2 red clouds appeared on her oval face. This is simply nonsense. Quickly pack up and come out with me. Gu Zixian stuck out her tongue and quickly tidied up her dress. Then, she was pulled out by Gu Ningxing by the hand. During the entire process, she kept turning back to look at Song Qing-shu. The charm and lingering in her eyes was enough to soften a well-tempered steel. Song Qing-shu's old face was also hot. From the beginning to the end, Gu Ningxing didn't say a single word to him. It was obvious that she was also dissatisfied with how he had defiled her daughter. It was only because he had done them a great favor that he didn't say anything. Looking at the surrounding environment, Song Qing-shu was also a bit speechless. Just now, he was bewitched and fooling around. When he returned to the banquet, his expression was normal, and he enjoyed himself with the many guests. When night came, he went back to his room early and fell into a deep sleep. Shui Baochai had learned a few lessons from the past, and was worried that he would sneak out in the middle of the night and affect tomorrow's written exam. So, she ran to his room to check, and found that he was actually sleeping soundly. For a moment, she couldn't help but feel a little curious. Early the next morning, the various forces left the guest houses and went to the Western Xia Imperial Palace together. The warriors of the first-class hall of Western Xia checked their name cards and put them into the palace one by one. These days, they were already very familiar with these participants, and those who wanted to fish in troubled waters could not escape their discerning eyes. When they arrived at the Hall of Central Harmony, they saw that there were already dozens of youths and attendants attending the banquet. In the middle of the hall, there was a table and chairs covered with yellow satin embroidered with golden dragons. It was the throne of the Western Xia Emperor. The east and west tables were covered with purple satin. On the west table, there was a strange person covered in bandages. When the group of Mongolian warriors behind him saw the arrival of Song Qing-shu, they all glared at him. Song Qing-shu had a strange expression on his face. This Su Yewu was really an unkillable cockroach. He was seriously injured, but he still forced himself to participate in the written exam in just one day. The officials of the first-class hall led Song Qing-shu and his party to the main seat on the east side. Beside them was Wanyan Zhongjie of the Jin Kingdom, and next to Su Yewu was Nalan Rongrao of the Qin Kingdom. It was obvious that among the many disciples who participated in the recruitment this time, their status was the highest, and the Western Xia people also treated them with special respect. Of course, with Jia Baoyu's current status, he still couldn't afford to be treated with such respect, and a large part of it was because he had won first place in the martial arts competition. The other disciples of the nobility and the ordinary talents of the common people were all seated at different tables. Everyone came in one after another and took their seats. Chapter 2262. Seeing this, Shui Baochai was shocked. She knew Jia Baoyu's background. Before, she could still use thunder fireballs, but now that they were in the palace, could she also use that thing? They had just fought for the championship. If she was drenched by the wine jug thrown by the loser in front of so many people, it would be really embarrassing. So she took the initiative to hit the flying jug with her palm, feeling a little anxious. Unfortunately, Sister Yang was not here, otherwise it would be better for her to take action in this situation. She was still a little weak and might not be able to catch the flying jug. Everyone's attention in the hall was instantly attracted by the strange situation, and they all wanted to see how the two sides would deal with it. The wine jug seemed to have been blocked by an invisible wall of air, and then bounced back at an even faster speed. Seeing this, the Mongolian warriors around Su Liawu all circulated their energy, wanting to send the wine jug back. Who knew that just as they were about to attack, the jug would shatter in front of Su Liawu, and the wine inside spilled out, drenching the Mongolian warriors. The warriors hurriedly stood in front of Su Liawu, but how could they block something like water? Some of it still spilled onto him. Good. Wanya and Zhongjia clapped and cheered. Jin Ming was her mortal enemy, and she did not care about Su Liawu's face. The others in the hall could not help but cheer. This control of energy was too brilliant. They did not expect such a delicate and beautiful girl to have such a powerful cultivation. Many disciples began to ask which family this girl came from in the Southern Song dynasty. If they could not marry the princess of Xixia, it would be good to pursue this girl. She was the best choice in terms of appearance, figure, and temperament. Only the person involved looked at her hand in a daze. Shui Baochai was also very confused. When did her energy become so high? Was it because Su Liawu was heavily injured and did not have much inner force? Song Qingshu smiled and leisurely drank his tea, hiding his strength and fame. The Mongolian side was furious, and they all drew their weapons and were about to rush over. At this time, 2 rows of people walked out of the inner hall. Some were dressed in tight clothes, while others were in loose robes. Most of them held strangely shaped weapons. Duan Yanqing shouted loudly, "Inside the palace, gentlemen, do not be rude. These people are from my country's Class 1 hall. If you are interested, you can fight one by one. Fighting in groups is not allowed." When Su Liu noticed that Class 1 hall had a lot of elites, he snorted and stopped his subordinates from continuing to cause trouble. After this small setback, the hall gradually quieted down. When all the seats were filled, 2 generals on duty shouted, "All the guests have arrived. Close the doors." Amidst the music, 2 thick doors were slowly pushed open by 4 guards with halberds. A group of golden-armored guards with long halberds in their hands walked out of the side corridor. The halberds shone brightly under the candlelight. Then, the drumming sounded again, and 2 groups of servants came out from the inner hall, each carrying a white jade incense burner, from which green smoke curled up. Everyone knew that the emperor of the Western Xia country was ill, and the empress was the one who dealt with the daily affairs. They thought that they could finally see the legendary empress, so they held their breath and didn't utter a word. The last 4 servants were dressed in embroidered robes. They were not holding anything in their hands, and they stood on either side of the throne. Seeing that the temples of these 4 men were bulging, they realized that the Western Xia was indeed worthy of having fought against the Southern Song for many years without falling. The martial arts skill of these imperial bodyguards in the palace was really not low. One of the servants shouted, "Her Majesty the Empress is here. Welcome." Everyone knelt down. Of course, many of them didn't kneel down, but just slightly bowed. A beautiful figure came out of the hall and sat down on the throne. The servant shouted again, "Rise." Everyone stood up. Everyone looked up. It was the first time for many of them to see the Empress at such a close distance. She was so young, and she was so beautiful. Everyone envied her, thinking that the emperor of the Western Xia country was really lucky with women. But now the emperor of the Western Xia country was sick, and the empress was a widow at such a young age. What a waste. Some of the filthy people were eager to serve the emperor of the Western Xia country, but they didn't dare to show the slightest disrespect to the empress. Among the people in the hall, Duan Yu was the saddest. Looking at his sister, who used to call him Duan Lang, but now had become the noble mother of the country, and the way she looked at him was no different from the way she looked at other people. He suddenly felt a little empty in his heart, thinking, Sister Wan's appearance and temperament are not inferior to Miss Wang's. Why did I throw myself at Miss Wang? But as soon as this thought came to his mind, he immediately shook his head. Duan Yu, she is your sister. How can you have such messy thoughts? You are really a bastard. Chapter 100 Literature. At this time, the minister of the Ministry of Rites was standing next to the throne. He unfolded a scroll and read aloud. The emperor of the great Xia country says, You have answered the summons and come from afar, and I am very pleased. You have been bestowed with wine. Although it was Mu Wanqing who appeared, she still acted in the name of the emperor. Everyone expressed their gratitude again. The servant shouted, Rise! Everyone stood up. The minister of the Ministry of Rites said, Everyone, please sit down. Please drink and eat as much as you want. The palace eunuchs brought out bowls of dishes. The Western Xia country was a bitter and cold place in the northwest. Their daily diet was mainly cattle and sheep. Although it was a royal banquet, there were still large pieces of beef and mutton. Those who could enter the main hall were all rich and used to eating delicacies. All of them were worried about the written exam, so how could they have the mood to eat and drink? But seeing Mu Wanqing sitting upright and inviolable, they were worried that they would be rude, so they could only suppress their doubts. But Su Liu didn't care so much. He quickly said, Empress, why didn't I see the princess come out? Looking at this young empress from such a close distance, her skin was really delicate. Will I become the ruler of the Western Xia country one day? I will definitely press her under my body and pamper her. Feeling the invasive look in his eyes, Mu Wanqing was unhappy. Her expression immediately turned cold. The princess is in the Blue Phoenix Pavilion. Someone will take you there after the banquet. The reason she was here was to take a look at Song Qingshu. But now, Song Qingshu was wearing Jia Baoyu's appearance. The woman with the surname Xuan next to him, and the princess Wanyan next to him, all looked intimate with him. Just looking at them made people angry. Now that she was disgusted by Su Liu, she simply got up and left. The crowd didn't expect this beautiful young empress to leave so quickly. They wanted to take a few more looks, but they didn't know how to make her stay. They could only eat and drink to their heart's content. After eating, they quickly went to the Blue Phoenix Pavilion to see the princess. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Even Duan Yu, who had no intention of finding a husband, wanted to see what this legendary princess looked like. They quickly finished eating and said that they wanted to see the princess. Very quickly, the Minister of Rites led the crowd through a large garden, through a few winding corridors, and past a row of fake mountains. In the distance, they could see the corner of a pavilion hidden among the flowers and trees. 2 palace lanterns were picked out by the side of the pavilion. The Minister of Rites led the crowd to the front of the pavilion and said in a clear voice, Guests from all over have come to see the princess. The pavilion door opened, and 4 palace maids came out. Each of them carried a lantern made of light muslin. Behind them was a female official dressed in purple. She said, You have all come from afar. The princess invites you to enter the Blue Phoenix Pavilion to serve tea. Song Qingshu had a strange expression on his face. He thought, What the hell is Li Qinglu up to? Why is it so complicated? The crowd rushed in, all wanting to get a good seat. The closer they were to the princess, the better. Inside the pavilion was a large hall. The floor was covered with a thick woolen carpet. There were colorful flowers woven on the carpet, making it bright and eye-catching. Small tea tables were arranged in rows. On the tables were blue and white covered bowls. Next to each covered bowl was a blue and white plate. The plates were filled with cheese, pastries, and other pastries of 4 colors. At the end of the hall There was a platform about 3 to 4 feet high. The floor was covered with a light yellow carpet. On the platform, there was a round stool with brocade cushions. Everyone thought that this must be the princess seat. They pushed and shoved, trying to get closer to the platform to sit. People like Su Liuwu respected their status and did not want to compete with these people. Naturally, Song Qing-shu was even more relaxed. After everyone was seated, the female official raised a small copper hammer and knocked it 3 times on a white jade cloudboard. The hall immediately became silent, waiting quietly for the princess to come out. After a while, they heard the jingle of pendants. 8 palace maids in green walked out from the inner hall and stood on either side. Another moment later, a young girl in light green walked out with light footsteps. Everyone's eyes lit up. They saw that this young girl had a slender figure. Her movements were refined and elegant. Her face was even more beautiful. Everyone secretly cheered. People say that Princess Inchuan's beauty is unparalleled. She really lives up to her reputation. Song Qing-shu vaguely remembered that she was Li Qinglu's personal maid. She was called Xiaolei or something. The young girl slowly walked to the platform and bowed slightly, paying her respects to everyone. When she came in, everyone had already stood up. When they saw her bowing, they all bowed to return the greeting. Some people saw that the princess was so humble and did not have the least bit of arrogance. They clicked their tongues and praised her. The young girl's eyes were on her nose was on her heart. She did not meet anyone's gaze. She looked very shy. No one dared to breathe too loudly. They were afraid that they would startle her. They all thought, the princess is of noble birth and lives deep in the Forbidden Land. Suddenly seeing so many men, she must be like this. It suits her noble status. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.